Got me?
I got you. You got me?
Sorry, David.
Yep.
I lost my phone this morning. It's on me. My bad.
Don't worry about it. Send Trent a link when you get
I
home.
sent Trent the link. Your link. You're
Floor
on.
Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Top of the morning to you on this first Friday of March. Oh, do we have madness in more than one sport? How the heck are you, Miller and Moulton? MillerandMoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Thanks so much for being with us. We have an NHL trade deadline in 9 hours. It's not like the league waits until the 6 to 9 hours before the deadline to get started, but we do officially have a trade deadline in the middle of the afternoon. The small conference tournaments are more than underway, because they've already set finals, and many of them are 2 or 3 rounds into their madness, and the big boys are getting ready for theirs. And if it's another day, it's more movement in the NFL, in which, well, teams are clearing out cap space, getting ready for free agency, which officially begins Wednesday of next week. Yeah, the legal tampering begins Monday morning, which means that it's already underway. Top of the morning to you, Rick. What are you doing turning the light on?
Yeah, I don't know, David. It just, it just was such a thing yesterday with the shadows, all the, I'm just, shaking it up a little bit. It's okay. It's a little bright for me this time of the morning, but I'm okay.
Are you sure? I mean, you can redo the lighting. I mean, I kind of like the mood lighting that
Really?
you had.
Okay,
And not only that, it didn't make me feel as bad because I look like I'm in a bunker in Kiev. Okay. So, when you went with the mood lighting, it looked as if, that you were in a better situation than I was, but only marginally so.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. We'll see how it works out,
Okay.
If it's
All
not
right.
if it's not too,
All
we'll
right.
see. Okay?
Okay. Fair enough. By the way, as a Vikings fan, did you want the Vikings to tag Darnold?
Yeah, absolutely I did. I mean, what other solution is there, David? Are they going to give him he's going to want at least a 2-3 year contract, right?
Well, of course.
As a free agent. So, I mean, are the Vikings going to do that? And then what do they do with J.J. McCarthy? But are you just going to give up on Sam Darnold and just throw J.J. McCarthy out there now? Well, I mean, there's even some reports that he's not healing so great from his injury, his ACL. So, well, we'll see, I guess. But
then if that's the case, like if he's not ready to go at minicamp after the draft, then I would question what the Vikings were doing, why they didn't tag him and keep Darnold in the fold for 1 year at $41 million. And Sam wouldn't have been happy. But then again, he made $10 million last year and he'd be making 41 this year. So, and he could hold off on going to Nashville or wherever it is that he probably has a deal already in the drawer. Okay. But I mean, Rick, remember in August of last year, the word was that Darnold was probably going to start, but that J.J. McCarthy was coming around the outside fast, and there was no guarantee that Darnold was even going to start the opener against the Giants.
No, J.J. McCarthy had a great preseason.
Right.
For what it's worth.
So now, obviously, McCarthy, I believe, counts about $5 million against the cap this year, and that's $36 million difference between Darnold's tag and McCarthy's salary, and they can obviously do a lot with that $36 million. So,
and the Vikings really aren't up against it as far as the salary cap goes. That's what I don't, because I know that the talk was $41 million for 1 year for Sam Darnold, but I think they're fairly comfortably under the cap, right? So what's the big deal?
Well, the other thing is that they've got a couple of young guys that I was hoping that they would keep in the fold. All right. And now that they let Darnold go, if I'm a Vikings fan, I'm like, well, then we shouldn't be losing anybody we don't want to lose.
Oh, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
We should have the money to at least keep who it is that we want. I'm okay with the Vikings thanking Sam Darnold and saying, hey, this worked for both of us. You were terrific. and we helped you rehabilitate your career. Best of luck. By the way, you're probably never going to throw to a Jordan Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then
Justin
TJ
Jefferson. Yeah,
right at tight end. I mean, you'll probably never have the wide receiver tight end combination that you just had. So I would hope that you would speak well of us. And you're 27 years old. Go knock them dead. And who knows? Maybe we'll get back together 3-4 years from now. Good luck. But I'm okay with it just being, like Kirk Gibson played 1 year with the Dodgers back in the day. Won the MVP, led him to World Series, went on his merry way. Now I know Darnold didn't win an MVP, but I mean, it did lead him to 14-3.
He did it. And David, I'm typically not the kind of guy who's going to sit and look at his body of work with Minnesota and then say, well, with the exception of 2 games. But man, it's hard to put that out of your head how quickly things went downhill going into that huge regular season matchup against the Lions, and then the first round in the playoffs. It's hard to get that out of my head. You understand, right?
And I think it was hard for the Vikings to get it out of their head, and that's why they've made the decision that they've made. And I appreciate the Twitch chat room calling me out. How come I keep saying Jordan Jefferson? All right, instead of Justin Jefferson. Why is that? I mean, he's making $35 million a year. He's one of the top 2 wide receivers. I really should get his name right. My bad. All right, I know it's early, but I should do better than that. Miller and Moulton on this Friday. It'll be a little bit of a football Friday. Russell Brown will join us in about an hour and a half, and we'll talk a little NFL with free agency beginning in earnest next week. We'll talk pucks with the former puck daddy, Greg Wyshynski, who's with ESPN. NHL trade deadline less than 9 hours away. And our spring training baseball tours continue. We'll talk a little Phillies. Are they the team to beat in the East? Or are we back to it being the Braves division? And the only thing that unseated the Braves was their injuries. So we'll talk a little Phillies with Frank Close and just see if they're better, the same, or worse from a year ago. That's coming up a couple hours from now. Are you a fan of Stephen A. Smith?
I mean, I don't know if I would say I'm a fan, but he's a magnet for hate, obviously. And I don't dislike him.
Okay.
He tries a little too hard to be maybe outlandish a little bit, and sometimes his style gets a little annoying, but I don't dislike him.
Well, there's no doubt that he has been the face of ESPN for a while. They made that decision a few years ago, and that's certainly not going to change. Don't know if you heard the news, but Stephen A. Smith is the 3rd highest paid person in sportscasting. Stephen A. Smith signed 5 years, $100 million. That's
wow.
20 per. And he actually is going to do a little less work than he's been doing, and he's been given permission. Most of the rest of the network is no longer allowed to go down this road, but he has been given permission in his podcast realm to talk politics.
Oh,
which he has gotten into in the last few months. So that's the contract that Stephen A. signed. The only 2 in sportscasting making more than Stephen A. Smith are Tom Brady and Charles Barkley. And I have to admit, I am probably next year going to watch more NBA pre and post than I've watched in a long time, because man, does Barkley hate the idea of being on ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
And he says it every night on TNT. So I can't wait until he's actually on the 4-letter network next year as they sublet the show out. And he is continuing to bash the 4-letter network the way he did last night. Man, I can't wait for this. Because then Stephen A. is going to stick up for the 4-letter network, and we're going to get those 2 guys yelling at each other, but never in the same studio at the same time. One's going to yell at him on his show. One's going to yell at him on his show. But maybe it's like a planned circus. I mean, not that that's been done before in, media
Oh, never.
Fake
No.
fights or anything.
No.
No. But anyway, 5 for 100. And so there was talk about a year ago that Stephen A was going to do a McAfee, that he was going to do his own thing. He was going to form his own company and that he could survive without the 4-letter network. Or he would use the 4-letter network and sublet his stuff out, but that he was going to make more doing it his way than just continuing to get checks from the worldwide leader. And it's true. He probably would have made more money continuing to do it, or not continuing, but if he had decided to like do it on his own. But it's a lot more work. And that's ultimately why McAfee stopped doing it himself and made the deal that he made with ESPN, because it's just like, man, all this planning and all this time I got to spend on the payroll and non-broadcasting stuff, that doesn't interest me. I just want to broadcast. So ESPN handles the organization, and then they cut the checks, and then they deposit the profits. McAfee, I believe, makes around 18 a year, I believe. But ESPN's got like 4 of the 8 highest paid sportscasters. Because after Stephen A, you go Troy, I think you go McAfee, and then you go Joe Buck. So, I don't know. Network seems to be doing a little better than people are saying.
Well, there was so many like layoffs and so much news about, cutbacks and all this, just in the last year or two. So,
yeah, but some people are getting paid.
Yeah, and the Pat McAfee thing, I don't really get that, but he just came on like gangbusters. All of a sudden, he was the biggest thing, and
yeah, and
sports commentary, and I was just like, I don't get it, but I would rather watch Stephen A. Smith than Pat McAfee. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. And they both have their own show a few hours apart. But McAfee has reached a totally different audience for ESPN, and they're keeping him on game day also. So I think he's added life to game day. And I thought that his rapport with Saban was outstanding for what it was worth. So there you have it. A little broadcasting news. 5 for 100. It's as if we're talking about players. And in a sense, we are when you get the high-profile sportscaster. Stephen A., 5 for 100, behind only Tom Brady and Charles Barkley in terms of AAV, Rick. We can talk AAV with sportscasters just like we can with the athletes. Miller and Moulton on this Friday. A lot to kick around. Thanks so much for being with us. Hope you've had a good week. Let's end it in style. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to nolanagency.com. That's 941-639-1122. or nolanagency.com. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Honey, you want to come out? I haven't seen you since Glass Doctor installed our custom shower enclosure.
No thanks.
Well, you can't keep eating breakfast in the shower, and laminating your magazines is getting expensive. You remember we have guests coming over tonight, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see the shower.
It's our neighbors, and I highly doubt they want to be hanging out in our bathroom.
The shower is so good, you'll never want to leave. Visit glassdoctor.com today and schedule an appointment online.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Yep. Mark shot a 1 under in blustery conditions yesterday. Paula, you sounded just like you. That's funny. Hope I sounded okay. I'm 2-0 on my ASUN picks yesterday against a number anyway. Didn't play them because that'd be unethical, but I'm with you, Go Raiders. I'm with you. There are days that I feel that way too, especially when it's at this hour and it'd be real easy to just roll back over. Did the check arrive, Rick, by the way?
You hear me?
I can now.
It looks like you're talking and I can't hear you. Oh, sorry. Sorry. What were you saying?
I just asked you. Oh, here we go. We're coming back.
Here we go. Sorry about that.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Mark off again today. He'll be back on Monday. Rick Church, once again, producing engineering in a better lit Southwest Florida studio this morning. We could go back to the mood lighting at any time, though. But for whatever reason, he wanted all of you. He didn't want to lurk in the shadows at the start of the show, twitch.tv/Miller and Moulton. He wanted all of you. Also, let's see, Wolfman Jack, Michael McDonald. What was the other?
Jerry Garcia.
Jerry Garcia. Those were the three lookalikes that you were, told that you were yesterday. So now that it's a little better lit, feel free that you decide who it is Rick Church looks alike. Since I've known him over 20 years, he looks a lot like Rick Church to me, but who does he look like to you? Feel free to chime in, twitch.tv/Miller and Moulton. I'm going to get a little personal right now to go along with sports. We love the madness. We love the drama, the excitement. But, there's also that side that we're well aware of. And sometimes we see it out in the open, but oftentimes it's in private. And in many cases, we've all experienced this. I mean, I'm guessing most everyone who's listening right now is not just a sports fan, but probably played sports at some level. And at some point, you played your final game. Maybe you knew it at the time. Maybe you ended up looking back going, I'll be damned. That was my final game. But I've been lucky enough the last couple of years to do Jacksonville University men's basketball on the radio for their road games. And so they lost in the ASUN semis last night at North Alabama, and they have 3 seniors on the team. And there's seniors who still have a year of eligibility, and then there's seniors. And they have 3 seniors. And so, nice young men, good players, all of them. One a wing, one a power forward, one a point guard, all transferred into the program for their final year and did really good things for Jacksonville. Jacksonville barely made the playoffs last year. This year, they were in first place late in the season, finished at top 4 in the league, won 19 games, which may not sound like a lot to many of you. Believe it or not, at Jacksonville, they haven't had a ton of 19-win seasons in the last 30 years. You'd be surprised. Haven't made the tournament since 1986. But I don't want to say it was uncomfortable, but I felt for those 3 young men, okay, who I don't want to say I got to know, but, we've been on the buses together. We've, been, having meals together. They know my face. I obviously know who they are. And I just felt for them. I mean, this is maybe 1 or 2 of them will, I don't know, latch on and try to play at the next level somewhere. Maybe it's halfway around the world. But it's just, that's the side of March Madness, like FGCU for those in Southwest Florida. I could argue their 3 best players are seniors. And I believe there are seniors in which they don't have any more eligibility seniors. And so they didn't think that their career was ending Monday night. They were home. They were favored. The team they had beaten at home earlier in the year. And next thing you know, that's it. Their college career's over. 3 guys who didn't start their career in Southwest Florida at FGCU. And so it's just got to witness that up close. And truth be told, might have been my last game. I mean, for a variety of reasons. And I'm almost 60. And all I ever wanted to be was a sportscaster. But what I really wanted to be was a play-by-play guy. I mean, that's what I wanted. And whether it was a professional team or it was a college, I wanted to be, quote, the voice. I did. Because I grew up with legendary voices in North Central Jersey and had access to the New York sports scene and the Philly sports scene. And forget the national voices. Like Kirk Gowdy was the first national sportscaster that I took to and said, ooh, wouldn't mind being like him. But, I mean, you name it. And I could go through, Marv Albert with the Knicks and Rangers, and the Mets had a legendary broadcast crew, a couple of them, in fact. The Philly announcers, Harry Callis, Gene Hart, the Mound of Sound on Flyers games. Okay, I mean, I was just, for a kid who grew up wanting to be a sportscaster, I was lucky enough that I was surrounded by greatness. I was surrounded, Merrill Reese, who's still doing Eagles games. I was just really lucky that way. And it hit me on the bus. I was the first person on the bus after the game last night. I probably sat on the bus for 15 minutes by myself while everybody was doing what they were doing in the locker room, what have you. Once I'm done, I'm done. And I just went to the bus and sat in my seat and just started thinking, kind of like the player who maybe played their first organized ball at 8, 9 years of age, and now they're a senior in college. And, my first games were in college. Well, I went to college in the early to mid 80s. And for a variety of reasons, last night might have been my last game doing play-by-play. Even though I think I still got something in me, but I just, I don't want to get into it, but it's probably the last game that I'll ever do play-by-play of. And I kind of felt, Rick, for the first time, I kind of felt like one of those players who's a senior, whether you're a senior in high school or you're a senior in college. And you're like, I'll be damned. It's over.
Going into it then, David, then give us your perspective. Like, how many of those kids do you think before that game that was in the back of their mind?
None.
I mean, no, yeah, because you're not going to go in thinking, well, there's a chance we might lose, but there's a chance you might lose, and does in any way that set in the back of their mind this could be?
I don't think once you get off the bus an hour and a half before the game at the arena that you're thinking about that. That may enter your mind in the 3 days in between the quarterfinal and the semifinal. But I do know when it begins to enter your mind for the first time last night, you could see it. They're down double digits with 3 minutes to go coming out of the last media timeout. Their head coach takes a timeout with 2:01 to go. They're down 13. I mean, I was staring at some of those seniors pretty closely. All right. You could tell that for the first time, they're looking up at the scoreboard and they're going, this could be it. Because it was a 3-point game mid-second half. So, Rick, even though they were down 18 in the first half and down 18 early second half, they go on a big run and they're down 3 and they're playing good. And they're thinking, hey, we were down 11 Monday night and came back and won. Hell, we were down double digits at Virginia Tech earlier in the year and we won. Rick, you know how athletes are. Athletes never think they're going to lose. Okay? Until all of a sudden you look up and you start doing the math, the score and the time, and you start thinking, I'll be damned. And you're on the road and 3,000 people in the gym are chanting and the whole deal. And you can see it.
And these are kids who have played this game their entire life since they were little kids. That's got to be a pretty stark and hurtful realization.
Yeah, and it happens all over the place in March, men's and women's. And it does. And it's real. And
And realistically, they have to wonder what are their chances of going to another level.
And they're not good. I mean, they're not.
You
There's a whole lot of them, and there's far more of them than there are jobs. And so the odds aren't good. But just to see it up close, and it's happened every year now for 30, 40 years, but to see it up close when the reality hits, when the clock strikes the proverbial midnight, it does make you take a step back and go, I'll be damned. The starting five is next. Miller and Moulton are very grateful to you, the listeners, for making us one of the highest rated shows for men, because the working man is one of the toughest demos to reach, and we do. Great sponsors like Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Sleep Treatment Direct, Game Day Men's Health, and Molly Maid recognize that, and we thank them. And if you own a business and working men are your clientele, the most cost-effective way to reach them is through us. Text Miller and Moulton at 21,000 or directly via X at that Mark Miller or the David Moulton.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.
So, David, with the starting five, do you usually keep that music bed kind of running low underneath the whole thing, the whole segment? Okay.
Yep.
That's what I thought, because it's like 13 minutes long.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got Greg Wyshynski coming up. Ambien, are you talking hockey or are you talking football?
Me?
No, I'm talking in the Twitch chat room.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Yeah, Sonny, let me tell you something. Canadians have a lot to answer for there about dumping on Wayne Gretzky. That's pretty amazing. That's wow. I mean, that's misguided angst right there. If I'm Gretzky, I may carry this one with me for a while. Well, he's played golf with Trump. He's been friendly with Trump, and so with everything that's going on, Canadians are really bent out of shape. Correct, Sonny. Yeah.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Mark off. He'll be back on Monday. Miller and Moulton coming at you from the Floormeister Studios. Floormeisters, just keeping it real. Rick Church, producing and engineering, back in our Southwest Florida studios, 22 minutes before the hour. Time now for
The Starting Five. 5 big stories you need to know. Here is the Starting Five.
We'll start with the NFL. Always lead with the NFL. Boy, the Jags were busy yesterday. So the Jags were going to cut Christian Kirk, right? Well, the Texans have a bunch of injuries at wide receiver. Their top 3 receivers from a year ago are either injured, won't be ready to start the year, or not under contract for this year. So they need receivers. And so the Texans called up the Jags and said, I know we're in the same division, but can we give you a 7th-round pick for Christian Kirk? Instead of you just cutting him and then we got to compete with everybody else? So the Texans will assume his contract. They give up a 2026 7th-round pick, and the Jags trade Kirk to the Texans. The Jags also announced that they plan to cut tight end Evan Ingram, who's been really good for them for the last 3 years. Wide receiver Devin Duvernay, wide receiver Josh Reynolds, and cornerback Ronald Darby. By cutting those 4 players, they're going to save $19 million. They unload Kirk. You add it all up, the Jags now have over $60 million in cap space. They're like top 7 in the league in terms of cap space available entering into free agency. They also had their starting center retired, Mitch Morse, after 10 years retired. He graded out really well in pass blocking, top 5 in the league last year, not so good in run blocking. In his early 30s, 10 years in, Mitch Morse retired. Jags also, we mentioned it on this show yesterday when we had JP Shadrick on, in which we said, hey, this whole Cooper Kupp to Jacksonville thing, this seems like a natural. Well, apparently both sides think so. Word is the Jags and Rams are going to strike a deal here probably today to bring Cooper Kupp from L.A. to Jacksonville. Bobby Wagner re-signs with Washington. He handled the negotiations himself, no agent. 1 year, $8 million, could make another $1.5 million in bonuses and incentives. Bobby Wagner, 13 consecutive years of 100 or more tackles in a season. That's got Hall of Fame written on it, doesn't it? Seems like it. Bengals have given star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. They never do that, ever. So Hendrickson said his goodbyes to Cincinnati yesterday on social media, and he and his agent are going to try to work something out, and the Bengals are moving on from Trey Hendrickson. And it's not even been 24 hours, has it? Maybe 36. And the Seahawks say, and I'm quoting, they have a ton of teams, unquote, that have called them and are interested in acquiring DK Metcalf. The early word from Diana Rossini at this time yesterday was the Seahawks were asking for a first and a third. That seems a little rich. DK is 27. He's entering the final year of his contract, so you not only have to acquire him, but then you likely have to pay him. So that seems rich. I'd be surprised if they get a first-round pick for DK Metcalf. I could see a 2 1 year or 3 the next, but that seems rich to me. But after all, he is a number 1 wide receiver.
David, whoever trades for Hendrickson's probably going to be in the same boat, though, right? They're probably going to need to give him a big contract going forward, right?
He's got 1 year left, but and he's right around 30 though, so it'll be interesting how long the deal is. But I gotta believe, Rick, that it'll be like 3 for 60 plus. I gotta believe
at the top of his game, right? I mean,
he led the NFL in sacks last year, had 14.5 the year before. I think he had 17.5 last year. I mean, once again, to me, if you're a Green Bay, if you're a Detroit, I mean, are you trying to win a Super Bowl or not? This is a 12-plus sack guy off the edge, and he's still got at least 2 years, maybe even 3 still in him. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if the Eagles get involved in Trey Hendrickson. It really wouldn't. Remember, he's under contract for this coming season. Anything that you sign him for is an extension. You can work that out in the future. Oregon head coach Dan Lanning, he signed a new contract. Rick, care to take a guess as to how much how much the football coach at Oregon is going to be making per year?
$12 million.
Well, you're there. It's 11.
Wow.
Okay. Dan Lanning, 6 years, 11 million per.
Oregon's got some money, Dave.
They do. Lanning under contract through 2030. His buyout for a school that may want to grab Dan Lanning, even though he's under contract, his buyout remains at $20 million. Lanning has won 35 games in 3 years at Oregon. Undefeated regular season last year and Big Ten title. Baseball, Yankees starting pitcher Luis Gil turns out, he ain't going to miss 2 months. He's going to miss a minimum of 3 with that lat strain in his pitching shoulder. Dodgers and manager Dave Roberts are likely to announce a long-term deal here today or this weekend. Both sides want to get it done before the Dodgers head to Japan to get the Major League Baseball season started a week from Monday. In 9 years with the Dodgers, he's won 2 World Series. He is entering the final year of his contract. People in the industry are looking to see, is he going to get paid more than Counsell? Craig Counsell is right now the highest paid manager at $8 million a year. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. gave a sit-down interview to address some of the rumors about his negotiations with the Jays. And he said, listen, we did not ask for Juan Soto money, okay? That was over $700 million. He said, we were well less than that. And when they said how much, he said, over 100 million less. In fact, we didn't get to 600 million. We did, however, he said, we asked for a 15-year deal, just like Soto got with the Mets. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is 25 this year. He'll be a free agent next offseason. College basketball, boy, probably a really good play for everyone listening. A tough beat for Miller and Moulton. The system play. This time yesterday, we were telling you, take Iowa in the points. And at this time yesterday, the Hawkeyes were getting 7.5. At tip, Iowa was getting 6.5. Michigan State rallied in the second half to beat Iowa by 7. So the system is 4-2 this week, and both losses by a half a point, and both losses after the line moved the wrong direction. Michigan State clinches the regular season Big Ten title, the 11th regular season Big Ten championship for Tom Izzo. Around the state of Florida, North Alabama eliminated Jacksonville from the ASUN playoffs, 78-63. North Alabama, the 2 seed, will travel to Nashville Sunday to face the top seed Lipscomb, who needed overtime to knock off Queens. FAU lost on the road to UAB. FIU lost on the road to Western Kentucky. Women's hoops, huge win for the Gators. I mean, I know nobody cares at Florida about women's basketball. They should be better. They're good literally in every sport except women's basketball. And it's been that way for a long time. But the Lady Gators, if you will, upset Alabama in the SEC tournament yesterday, 63-61, to advance to, I believe, the quarterfinals. UCF season came to an end. They lost to K-State 80-65 in the Big 12 tournament. FIU lost at home to Western Kentucky by 35. Auburn and Houston fired their women's basketball coaches yesterday. NBA, Kobe White with 44 for the Bulls, who went into Orlando and beat the Magic. Who doesn't go into Orlando and beat the Magic these days? 125-123. Orlando has fallen 6 games below 500. Not only that, they have fallen to the 9 seed. Atlanta is now a half a game ahead of the Magic. Atlanta at home beat Indiana 124-118. Lakers rallied in the fourth, tied the Knicks, forced overtime, beat the Knicks at home 113-109 in OT, their 8th straight win. Celtics handled the Sixers 123-105. And Steph Curry is awesome. And here he is in his mid-30s. And he and the Warriors went on the road, and they just went 4-1 on the road trip. And they rallied last night. Steph hit like a half quarter to end the first half. He ended up with 40. Golden State needed all of it. They beat Brooklyn 121-119. Hockey. Couple of major trades yesterday. There were a bunch of trades, but a couple of major ones. Brock Nelson overnight traded from the Islanders to the Colorado Avalanche for 2 players and a first and a third round pick. That's after contract negotiations between Nelson and the Islanders didn't work out. By the way, remember 2 months ago, Carolina traded for Rantanen from the Avs? Well, they've offered him 2 big money extensions. He's turned them both down. There's talk that the Hurricanes may trade Rantanen today at the deadline, that he'll end up being a 2-month rental. Edmonton acquired defenseman Jake Wallman to fortify their blue line. Some other trades as well. Greg Wyshynski to talk the NHL in a little more than an hour. Who does he expect to get moved before the 3 o'clock in the afternoon trade deadline? On the ice, Jake Getzel with a hat trick. Lightning came from 5-3 down to beat Buffalo 6-5. Bobrovsky with 16 saves. He ties Tony Esposito top 10 on the all-time wins list. Florida's 3-0 over Columbus. Sam Reinhart and Barkov each had a goal and 2 assists. Man, the Wings are struggling. Wings had a playoff spot a week or 2 ago, and they've done nothing but lose seemingly since. Utah went into Detroit, and the hockey club won 4-2. You know, the hockey club's only 3 points out of a wild card in the West. Wings are a point behind Columbus and the Rangers for the final playoff spot in the East. Carolina got a game-winning goal from Seth Jarvis with 19 seconds left. A crushing defeat for Boston, 3-2 Carolina. Stars in overtime beat Calgary 3-2. Important point for Calgary, however. That point now has them in the final playoff spot out west ahead of Vancouver. Edmonton scored with 7 seconds left in overtime to beat Montreal 3-2. And Cale Makar with 2 goals and 4 assists. That's not bad for anybody. It's amazing for a defenseman. Colorado 7-3 over San Jose. Golf, the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Cool, windy conditions. Wyndham Clark, 5 under, has a 2-shot lead over 4 golfers. 2 of them are Keegan Bradley and Shane Lowry. Rory Sabatini's at 2 under. Scotty Scheffler's at 1 under. This just a 72-man field. It's got a very LIV feel to it, although it is 72 holes. The rest of the PGA Tour is in Puerto Rico, playing the Puerto Rico Open. Kevin Roy has a 1-shot lead. He went low at 10 under. George McNeil, those in Southwest Florida may remember George. He hasn't been a regular player on tour for a handful of years now, but George is going to turn 50 in October. And George is obviously brushing up on his game. I think George won the Puerto Rico Open back in the day. Anyway, George got an invite, and he's 3 under late in his first round. His round was suspended, but he shoots another one of those. He'll make the cut and cash a check. Getting ready for the Champions Tour later this year. LIV's in Hong Kong later today. By the way, so are the days of our lives. Rory McIlroy this week is pessimistic about a deal between the PGA Tour and the LIV Tour. Wasn't it just a month ago at Pebble that he was all optimistic about a deal? Man. And the LPGA Tour's in China, the Blue Bay Open. 7 under is the lead. American Austin Kim is 2 back. And as we mentioned earlier, Stephen A. Smith re-signs with ESPN. He's now the 3rd highest paid sportscaster in the business. Brady's number 1, Barkley's number 2. But Stephen A. making $20 million a year for the next 5 years. You'll see him a little less away from his talk show. However, he's going to do less games. I think he's going to do less Sports Center. He is, however, he's got clearance to talk politics on his personal podcast. And it's 7 minutes before the hour. That was the starting 5. 5 big stories and Stephen A. Smith you needed to know here on Miller and Moulton. Russell Brown to talk NFL in 45 minutes. Thanks for being with us. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh, no.
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks slide peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor, a neighborly company.
Do you have a sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit sleeptreatmentdirect.com. That's sleeptreatmentdirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound.
This is Miller and Moulton. I don't think you'd be able to see the lake. Okay. Even if I turned, I'll try later. Give it one more segment. I'll try it. Besides, it's a river. It's a Tennessee River. I'll try. Yes, ambient, you're a little fire. You've turned it into your own chat. You are a little fired up this morning. They did, DC. Yep. Top 2 seeds won in the A-Sun. Lipscomb in overtime at home, and North Alabama pulled away. Well, it's interesting, Paula, because I kept talking about the Lions. That's obviously North Alabama, but
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floormeister Studios. Floormeisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Hour 2 of Miller and Moulton on this Friday. Mark off today. He'll be back on Monday. No word, by the way. I mean, Rick, you saw him briefly. Did he mention anything about how his round went yesterday? Did he get off to a good start in the member guest?
He did not say. He was a little frazzled this morning and just kind of getting things all set up and thrown together. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him much.
All right. May have to text
I've
him.
no idea.
He probably doesn't want to be disturbed, but I may have to text him and say, hey, how did it go? But, that's after the rumor was that Mark was the 10 handicapper that beat Scotty Scheffler leading into the Arnold Palmer Invitational early this week. But we're going to talk a little football in 35 minutes with Russell Brown. An hour from now, Greg Wyszynski will join us. The NHL trade deadline is 8 hours away. We'll talk some Phillies in our third hour. Trent's going to join us for the bonus hour. Trent and I are going to do the hour together. Trent's going to join us from somewhere in Michigan, and we will do the bonus hour together, probably talk a lot of college hoops. Rick, I'm not only asking you, I'm asking everyone who's listening. I'm just going to mention some of these players. These are players that as of now, I believe they're all free agents. I got this list last night. I don't believe anyone on this list has signed a contract with their team to take themselves off the free agent list. But this is some of what is out there. First off, do you know that 2 of the Eagles' dominant defensive linemen are available in free agency? 26-year-old Milton Williams inside and Josh Sweat off the edge.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
26-year-old Milton Williams, 28-year-old Josh Sweat. Okay.
Well, why have we not heard about that? I mean, are they expected to re-sign or
No. No. I mean, the Eagles are still making deals. They gave Barkley an extension and a raise. They signed the Bond, the linebacker, but it's possible that Howie Roseman could sign one or both of these guys, but that's not the word. I mean, you get this close to free agency and you're a defensive lineman and you get this close to free agency and you had the Super Bowl that you had. You may even re-sign with Philadelphia, but you may wait to see what some of the offers are elsewhere. 26 and 28-year-old defensive linemen.
Yeah, and been good ones too.
Yeah. Obviously.
I mean, the way they pressured Mahomes during the Super Bowl was insane. Right. I mean, that's
What are you? And I don't mean you, Rick. I mean, what are you? A team that needs a tackle. How much are you willing to pay for Ronnie Stanley? Good player. He's 31 years old. All right, which is not old for an offensive lineman. It's not. Okay, Ronnie Stanley, you need a tackle. Sam Darnold, you need a quarterback. By the way, anybody still think Justin Fields is the guy? Like, does anybody think Justin Fields could be the 2025 Sam Darnold, the 2023 Baker Mayfield, if you know what I mean? I mean, just a quarterback who it hasn't worked out, was a starter at one point in his career, now starting to go down the journeyman route, and then Tampa Bay gave Baker a shot, and look what he's done with it. Vikings gave Sam Darnold a shot.
Look what he did with it. Does anybody think Justin Fields is that guy?
I think he could be. I wouldn't rule him out, right? I mean,
well, but
look at his experience in Chicago with all the changing of coaches and
yes,
and I mean, he was so diplomatic the way he talked about it to the media, and he basically said, I'm getting like instructions from 3 different people, the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback coach, who are constantly changing. So his birth in the NFL was a disaster. So, and he wasn't playing bad when he was, in fact, weren't a lot of us surprised when the Steelers put Russell Wilson? Like, really? Was Justin Fields playing that bad the first couple of weeks?
Now, I will say, I thought when Russell Wilson came in, he played at a higher level than Justin Fields was playing at. But yes, Fields did make things happen.
Yes.
But think about this, though. The Bucs, when they signed Baker Mayfield in 2023, they were basically handing him the job. Okay, he had to compete with Kyle Trask. Okay, I mean, if Baker couldn't win that, quote, battle, well, then his career's in jeopardy. So when they signed Baker, they were saying to him, hey, come here, you'll be the starter for a year. Okay, it'll be good for you. It'll be good for us. Let's see what happens. When the Vikings brought in Sam Darnold last year, okay, at the time that they signed him, they hadn't drafted J.J. McCarthy yet. When they signed him, they were saying to Sam, our intent is to draft a quarterback, but our intent is for you to be the quarterback in 2024. Make the most of it. You then go and do your thing. We'll turn it over to the kid that we draft. Okay, so that, if you think about it, Rick, is there a team out there that is either desperate enough, unable to get their hands on anybody else, or feels that Fields is a sleeping whatever, a diamond in the rough, and that he just needs a good organization, a good support system? How about the same guy calling the plays for a year and not chaos on offense? I mean, even the Pittsburgh offense, it wasn't dynamic. They only have one guy who can get separation, and he's a head case. Okay. The offensive line is, especially pass blocking, sketchy. The run blocking is pretty good. Okay. Or is Fields just a bust? Talented, can make a few dynamic plays. Or as Irish Football says in our Twitch chat room, he's a bust.
How can you call him a bust already?
Well, he's going to be on his 3rd team.
I understand,
what, 5 years?
He inherited.
Yes.
The Chicago thing was a joke, a complete mess.
They failed him. Absolutely.
With structure in Pittsburgh, I think he played pretty well until, for whatever reason, they made that switch. And yeah, Russell Wilson played great, but weren't a lot of people questioning that move, David? Like when they switched from Fields, weren't a lot of people going, why are they doing this now?
Well, especially since they were winning with Fields. Okay.
Yes.
I think they were like 5-2 or something like that when they made the move. So people were like, what are you doing? Who benches a quarterback who's winning? So, and Mike Tomlin said, well, I'm the coach and I've got my reasons, and they never went back. But Pittsburgh, Rick, could be that team. What if Pittsburgh just says, for whatever reason, say Russ goes to Vegas, say they can't bring him back, say they decide or it doesn't work out with Aaron Rodgers. Does Pittsburgh just say, hey, we're going to do the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold year with Justin Fields? Okay, we are.
I think that'd be smart.
So you think if they did that, do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers would have a winning record?
Yes, I do, because it's a stable organization. They've got some weapons. The defense is good. And I think, Justin Fields would be good enough to make them a winning team. Absolutely. Well, and they were a winning team with him the first 6 weeks of the season last year.
If you think about that, then you're only, because if you're promising Justin Fields a starting job, he's going to sign with you for no matter what it is you're offering. Well,
correct.
The going rate's been proven. It's $10 million. Baker's come here, figure it out, 1 year, 10 million. Sam Darnold in Minnesota, 1 year, 10 million. So the market's been established. So then you're only spending 10 million on your quarterback position. Now, I think the guy that Pittsburgh may do that with is Daniel Jones. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased. I'm a Giants fan. I'm done with Daniel Jones. All right, I am.
Now he's a Viking.
Okay, well, for the time being,
yeah.
Right. So, but I'm just curious. In looking at this free agent list, it was top 100 free agents in the NFL. Well, and you could disagree with this assessment, but Justin Fields was considered a top 20 free agent that's available this offseason. Now, you may completely disagree, but if by chance you agree, then can't somebody, whether you think it's a roll of the dice, name the team out there you think has nothing to lose. I mean, would the Tennessee Titans, would it really be the worst thing in the world if they gave Justin Fields a shot for a full year?
How about your New York Giants, David?
How about the New York Giants?
What are they going to do?
I guess they signed Tommy Cutlets back the other day.
I just saw that story. I was like, wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, wow. Literally.
And that's the only quarterback under contract on the roster.
Correct. Right. Now, it's obvious that the Giants are going to sign a veteran quarterback who we'll find out. I do want to mention when Russ signed with the Steelers, when he got let go by Denver, he only met with two teams. The Steelers were the second team he met with. The first team he met with was the Giants. So he's only a year removed from that meeting. All right. And they got a chance to see him play. So I wonder, you're not hearing Russell Wilson linked to the Giants at all. And the reason Russ didn't sign with the Giants was they weren't going to give him a chance to compete for the job. It was Daniel Jones's job. He was going to be the number 2. And he's like, yeah, Pittsburgh's basically offering me the job. So, I mean, I'm interested, but not over that offer. So it's something to keep in mind that Russ met with the Giants and the Steelers last year before signing with Pittsburgh. But I just want to throw that out there about Justin Fields. Are we done with Justin Fields? Is he officially a bust? Is he officially a backup quarterback at best and can't consider him? Or why can't Justin Fields be Baker? Why can't Justin Fields be Darnold? I mean, you do have to acknowledge the Bears did Justin Fields wrong. I mean, they did. And it wasn't a dynamic offense that he was running in Pittsburgh either. I mean, how good would Sam Darnold have looked if he didn't have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson? I mean, you start playing with the Bears and the Steelers personnel and tell me how good you look. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com. Miller and Moulton would like to thank the sponsors that, quite frankly, saved the show in 2024. Whether it was Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Molly Maid, Cigar Bar, Sleep Treatment Direct, the Diamond District, and even the Cape Coral Police Department, thank you. We're hopeful of a great 2025, still needing sponsors, so reach out to Miller and Moulton via X at that Mark Miller or the David Moulton, or text us at 21,000. But Miller and Moulton says thank you to our sponsors and to you, our loyal listeners.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
You have a sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit sleeptreatmentdirect.com. That's sleeptreatmentdirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Everybody is better than Zach Wilson. Everybody. God, you guys with your Minshew love. I mean, the Raiders took an $11 million cap hit to get rid of Minshew. It's true. His highlight last year was that fourth quarter against the Ravens. Well, I like him as a guy. I mean, you know, he's Taylor Heineke, Gardner Minshew. You know, maybe a little better, but do a few things to make you go, oh, wow. And then he'll lose a couple games in which you go, oh, wow. But what was he, a 5th-round pick? He was actually had a hell of a career. Oh, man. Isn't Mac Jones still under contract, Adam? I mean, I thought, didn't they sign Mac Jones to a 2-year deal when they got him from New England?
So don't they have him for another year? Hey, Rick.
Yes, sir.
You guys didn't re-sign Murphy, did you?
I don't think so.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that it's not still going to happen.
Here we go. Well,
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Mark's off again today. He'll be back on Monday. The poll question returns with Mark. The good, bad, and ugly returns with Mark. All right. So that's at the very least. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Greg Wyshynski coming up at the top of the hour to talk NHL. The hockey trade deadline is less than 8 hours away. We'll talk a little spring training, some Phillies next hour as well. Russell Brown to join us in a little more than 15 minutes to talk some NFL. So I just want to go through this list because we seem to go straight from the Super Bowl to the draft and not necessarily pay attention, I guess, in a detailed way as to who's a free agent and who's not. Let me tell you something. If you need some secondary help, there's a lot of guys that are available. I mean, Carlton Davis is available. Travarius Ward's available. DJ Reed of the Jets is available. Byron Murphy of the Vikings is available. He's 27 years old. Rick, Vikings fan, what the heck is going on there?
I don't know, David.
I mean, seriously,
I understand, but I mean, it's not like they still couldn't do that.
Well, but you have to assume, I do think it's a fair assumption that if you reach Friday morning, March 7th, with free agency Wednesday the 12th, and legal tampering beginning Monday morning the 10th, which means that it's already underway. I mean, I think one has to assume if you've gotten to Friday, March 7th, that you're probably going to get to free agency. I mean, the Vikings signed him 2 years ago to a 2-year, $22 million deal. He outperformed the deal.
Absolutely.
He's 27 years old. What am I missing?
And I just looked it up because I wasn't really sure what the status was. And a post yesterday on the Vikings website says that he cryptically posted an Instagram story, which is a 2-minute highlight video of him with no commentary on it. So what do you think that means? Check me out,
Javon Holland of the Dolphins. Now, is he the same player he was before the knee injury? I don't think so. I think he's a good player. I understand why the Dolphins didn't tag him. It's going to suck to lose him, but the tag is probably $5 million more than what he's worth. So they made a tough business decision. I think it sucks, though, when you're letting your good mid-20-year-old players go. Okay, that to me is tough. Like you're obviously overpaying others on your roster to be in a position that you couldn't pay him. I would rather overpay a 25-year-old who could play than some of the guys that you're paying to keep around who are 29, 30, 31, etc. Remember Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles 2 Super Bowls ago. All right, came back late last year, hardly played. He's a free agent now. You're probably going to get second year removed from the Achilles. Dre Greenlaw will probably be 90+%. It's a pretty good linebacker, isn't it? It's more than a pretty good linebacker. And Nick Bolton, is available at linebacker. All right, who's going to take a flyer on Hassan Reddick? Remember the edge rusher? Jets traded for him. He held out on the Jets, ended up having a lost season. He's only 30. He's got a lot to prove. He's probably going to have to sign a 1-year loaded with incentives deal. I think I'd do that. If I could get Hassan Reddick to sign for less than $8 million a year loaded with incentives, I think I'd do that for 1 year. How about the wide receiver? By the way, Asante Samuel, 25-year-old corner for the Chargers. He's available. I'm just saying. I mean, there are a few guys who are free agents in which you're kind of like, huh, well, that's interesting. Devontae Adams, Amari Cooper. Now, Stephon Diggs, 3 receivers in which the first digit's a 3. Cooper clearly battled injuries last year. Devontae didn't perform, and he admitted it. Devontae said, yeah, I wasn't good enough last year. But Chris Godwin, all right, 29 years old. You going to pay Chris Godwin? I mean, I'm going to throw this out there right now. I think the Houston Texans are going to pay Chris Godwin. Somebody I think is paying Chris Godwin. Now, do I think he's a 1? No. Do I think he's a top 5, 2? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. So that's just some of what's out there. I mean, I think good players. In some cases, you're like going, how does this guy reach in free agency? What are they doing? Here, let me ask you this, Rick. He was a Jaguar until you guys acquired him. Cam Robinson at left tackle. How much you willing to pay Cam Robinson?
Well, I mean,
29 years old.
There's a lot of chips to fall. I mean, I'm I don't know. And like I said, the Vikings are pretty comfortably under the cap right now, from what I understand. So it is strange that they're not, being a little more proactive and bringing some of these guys back. But I don't know what the plan is.
Cam Robinson, I think, is considered an average to above average tackle. No better than above average, even though the Jags franchise tagged him twice. That was more their desperation than really how good he was. Maybe they fell victim to how good they thought he would be. But let me ask all of you out there, how much is an average left tackle worth who's 29 years old? I mean, what would the Chiefs have given for an average left tackle? Is this where the Chiefs go in free agency? They don't pay the $20+ million a year for the tackle, but maybe you can get Cam at, I don't know, 10 to 12. It is interesting, by the way, that some of the players that the Vikings are moving away from, isn't it? The standout corner, Sam Darnold, Cam Robinson. I mean, these are positions that a lot of teams can't lock up soon enough. And the Vikings, in some cases, are comfortable moving on, and in others, they just couldn't work out a deal. Okay.
I mean, especially coming off the season they just had and how a lot of these players contributed, it is strange. But again, I just keep faith in that, hopefully they know what they're doing and we've got time. I don't know.
And you know by listening, all right, I love your coach. I'm not crazy about your general manager. And I think we could go through his drafts and we could pick them apart, to be brutally honest with you. All right. So I think your coach is a star in the making, but I'm not sold on your GM. There's a few of these moves here that if you guys lose Byron Murphy, I'm going to be like, what the heck? Seriously, what is wrong with you?
He's only been their GM for 1 year, though, right?
No. He came with O'Connell.
Oh, did he really?
They've both been there 3 years.
Okay.
So, I mean, but that's some of what's available. Legal tampering begins Monday, which means it's already underway. Free agency officially begins Wednesday afternoon, 4:01 is when Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter will suddenly, shockingly, amazingly post all these deals that have been done so quickly. And they'll actually post those deals being done on Monday and Tuesday, which is also amazing considering that they could only begin talking to one another Monday morning. And yet by lunch on Monday, all these players and teams will have essentially agreed upon a deal. Wow. I mean, it's as if the NFL's turned into the NBA. Miller and Moulton. Russell Brown covers the NFL. We'll talk to him about this and more coming up. Greg Wyshynski in a half an hour. NHL trade deadline is this afternoon. And we'll talk a little spring training. And Trent will join me for the bonus hour in 90 minutes. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com. Miller and Moulton are very grateful to you, the listeners, for making us one of the highest rated shows for men, because the working man is one of the toughest demos to reach, and we do. Great sponsors like Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Sleep Treatment Direct, Game Day Men's Health, and Molly Maid recognize that, and we thank them. And if you own a business and working men are your clientele, the most cost-effective way to reach them is through us. Text Miller and Moulton at 21,000 or directly via X at that Mark Miller or the David Moulton.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to nolanagency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or nolanagency.com.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
I'm not talking. I'm waiting for David to reconnect. He got booted again from his hotel suite. Yeah. Hopefully he'll get back quickly. Oh, here he comes. Oh, you're back. Whew. All right, I'm gonna call our guest real quick. All right.
Thank you.
Ready to go.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
22 minutes before the hour, formerly known as the Puck Daddy, Greg Wyshynski will join us at the top of the hour. NHL trade deadline a little more than 7 hours away. We'll talk Phillies next hour as well as our spring training tours continue here on Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Mark off today. He will be back on Monday. Russell Brown is kind enough to join us. He covers the draft for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He covers the Lions under the USA Today network, the Lions Wire. He also does a Lions podcast. You can follow Russ on X at Russ NFL Draft. Russ NFL Draft. Russell, it's David. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Well, I know you're not doing great because you're a Wings fan and they're doing it to you again. Is there anything you want me to ask Wyshynski in 20 minutes as to what Yzerman should do?
Yeah, I mean, is there anything coming? Is reinforcements coming? Because this is a team that's doing it twice in a row, back-to-back years out of an all-star break or for Four Nations tournament where they just absolutely collapse. It's very frustrating as a hockey fan.
Well, let's start first with the Lions before we go to the draft. Is it too obvious that the Lions should just target one of these defensive linemen, whether it's one of the two Eagles defensive linemen that are free agents, whether it's the Trey Hendrickson sweepstakes, whether it's four good corners that are between the ages of 25 and 28 that are available in free agency? I mean, is all of this just too obvious?
Yeah, it really feels like it. It seems like, going into free agency maybe 2 weeks ago, they weren't going to be heavy spenders because there was some uncertainty of what the market was going to look like. And then over the last 2 weeks, just a bunch of chaos has started to happen. Trey Hendrickson, as you mentioned, going to be getting traded more than likely. and just more players are starting to hit the open market, whether that be pass catchers, defenders, whatever the case may be. I would have to guess that they would definitely sniff into Cincinnati's pocket and be like, hey, what can we get for Trey Hendrickson? Can we make a deal happen here? Because I think with some some similarities and being familiar with him in New Orleans, Dan Campbell was there. I know Aaron Glenn is now gone, but they are familiar with him. So I just wonder if they know a little bit about his background, and would they go ahead and maybe spend that money to give him, some guarantees, maybe a 2 to 3 year contract extension, while also giving Hutchinson and Kirby Joseph extensions. They're going to have to be smart about this and consider the long term, because they've got guys in house that they want to re-sign. But I would have to imagine they go out and get some type of pass rusher in free agency, because there's quite a few that's going to be available, whether it's Joey Bosa, Trey Hendrickson, or obviously even Myles Garrett.
A lot of talk is about the Chiefs at 31. They need a tackle. Is there going to be a good enough one available there? Do they have to move up? Well, what are the Lions? 29? I think 28. Okay, in the draft. I mean, this is a draft loaded with defensive linemen. Is one of them going to get to them, or are they, if they want, like say they want the second tackle from Michigan, okay, how far up do you think the Lions would have to move if they want to get a plug-and-play interior defensive lineman?
There's a good chance that they could stay pat at 28 and potentially get their guy. That guy may be Derek Harmon out of Oregon. But if they really want to ensure that they get their guy, I think they've got to get up to 21, 22, whether that's with Pittsburgh or the Chargers go ahead and make that trade, because they've got the Packers there. They've got Minnesota there at 23, 24. You've got Houston at 25. All three teams could be looking for a potential interior defensive lineman. So I think there's a lot of intrigue with this group, because it's a very good group. It's very deep. We saw 70 total defensive linemen between edge rusher and defensive tackle at the combine. I think that this is a group where we're going to see 6, 7, maybe even 8 defensive linemen in each round. So there's still a chance that they could stay at 28 and get their guy. But if they want a Derek Harmon, a Kenneth Grant, as you mentioned, they may have to get up to 21, 20, 22, somewhere in that range to get that guy. And I still think depending on what happens in free agency, I still think they end up going that route, because it's still a position of need, and they had a bunch of one-year players on practice squad deals and all that good stuff to end out the season from the defensive line group.
He's Russell Brown. We're talking draft and a little NFL free agency with him. Follow him on X at Russ NFL Draft. Russ, R-U-S-S, NFL Draft. Talk to me about the Missouri wide receiver, Luther Burden. All right. How good do you think he is? I know that you posted you thought he'd be a perfect fit in Green Bay. We all know the Packers don't take wide receivers in the first round, but how good is Luther Burden in your estimation?
I think some teams will value him as the top wide receiver in the draft. I think when you look at Emeka Buke from Ohio State, Ted McMillan from Arizona, and Luther Burden here from Missouri, I really think it's almost like ice cream, right? Like, pick your flavor. Which type of receiver do you want? Do you want the guy that can run great routes in the short and intermediate areas of the field? Okay, you take a Buke. If you want a guy that's versatile, can run after the catch, get vertical down the field, make big catches happen, you take Luther Burden. If you want a guy that can win at all three levels, but also has great body control, isn't going to always get separation, but he's going to win above the rim for you, then you take Ted McMillan. So I think it's really what type of flavor are you looking for, and Luther Burden could very well be that guy for a couple of teams. Maybe that's Carolina at 8, maybe a little too rich. Maybe it's 12 with Dallas, getting compliments to CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and the list goes on. So I like Luther Burden. 4.4 speed. He showed that at the combine. I think he's really fluid after the catch. I love the versatility. I think the way that they used him at times in the screen game was a little head scratching. He never had to leave blockers from time to time. But this is a guy that can win anywhere on the field. And if he was to land in a place like Green Bay, I think he gives them a true number one option in the passing game. And he would complement, I think, Jaden Reed really well. And Romeo Doubs, if he's sticking around, it sounds like they may trade him. The same with Dontavian Wicks. One of those guys may get dealt if they want to acquire potentially DK Metcalf. If they do that, then I think that obviously takes them out of the sweepstakes for Luther Burden or taking a receiver in the first round. But I think Burden fits a lot of teams in this first round. And he's a guy that, to me, isn't getting out of the first round on any mock draft I'm going to do between now and April.
A team that may be closer than most of us think is Denver. They need offensive skill player help for Bo Nix. The thought a month ago was, hell, Genty may be there, the running back from Boise. Tyler Warren may even fall to them, or certainly Loveland, the Michigan tight end. Now, a month later, it seems as if none of those guys are going to get to Denver. How much of that do you think is true? Is Denver going to end up with the third or fourth best tight end in this draft, even at 20?
It's possible. I think Ashton Genty and Tyler Warren will be long gone by that point. I think Ashton Genty will end up being a top 10 pick. I don't see him getting past Chicago, and I don't even know if he's going to make it to Chicago. Tyler Warren, he could go as early as 7 or 8 to the Jets or the Panthers, and I don't see how he gets past, probably Indianapolis. So that opens up the door potentially for Colston Loveland, and I guess that really depends. Do teams value Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren? I don't think that's going to be the case. So Colston Loveland from Michigan would be the player that really makes the most sense to me if they want to acquire a tight end and get a true number one tight end. He kind of reminds me of Dalton Kincaid when he was coming out of Utah. The only difference is Loveland seems to be a little bit more healthy. So I know he got banged up this past year. He had the shoulder issue and that type of stuff, but it's not like back injuries and neck injuries that Kincaid was dealing with when he was coming out. So I think he's comparable there, though. I love the route running ability. I love that he can play inside and outside. He runs routes like a receiver. He catches the ball away from his frame. He's got some run after catch ability. So Loveland to Denver would make a lot of sense. And I think that ultimately is the landing spot for him if the draft were today.
I think Mason Graham is a top 5 player in this draft. To me, if I'm the Jaguars at 5, that's who I want. I mean, I'd settle for Travis Hunter, but I want Mason Graham. The interior of their defense is not good. They gave up 6 yards a carry last year. They've got the 2 pass rushers. Is Mason Graham as good as I'm making him out to be? Because some people have him going high, and some people have him going in the teens.
He's definitely, everything that you're hyping him up to be, for sure. I mean, he's a guy that is a spark plug for the interior part of your defensive line. Active hands, active feet, high motor, my type of player and the type of player for a lot of teams out there. 6'3", 296, shorter arms at 32 inches, but you can work with that. If you're getting off the line of scrimmage and you're working your hands right away, there's a good chance that an offensive lineman isn't going to get you chest to chest. So you should be able to win a little bit consistently at the point of attack. But then you just look at what he does as a pass rusher. That's huge on third down. I will say some stuff coming out of the combine from what I had heard was that Mason Graham maybe didn't interview as well as some people wanted him to. Seems like he may be a little bit entitled. He came in a little heftier than some people thought, because I know at 296, that doesn't sound too big when you look at some of these guys that are 330. He was listed at 320, and he just wasn't built the way that some people thought he was going to be built like. So I think he's got to check some boxes off between now and the end of April, but I'm with you. I think he's one of the 5 best players in this draft just off of film, and I think he's going to be a guy that still goes relatively early in this draft, regardless of what some of the stuff may have been coming out of the combine.
He covers the draft for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. He also covers the Lions for the USA Today family network, if you will, and he does a Lions podcast. He's Russell Brown. Follow him on X at Russ NFL Draft. Russ NFL Draft. If Genty's going to go in the top 10, is there another running back worthy of taking in the first round? I think it's an excellent running back draft class, but I think it's a bunch of second and third round running backs in the draft class. Do you have a guy or two that you would be willing to take in the 20s at the running back position?
I agree with you. I think it's a great running back class, a lot of second and third round guys. So there could be a team certainly there that considers taking one, and maybe that running back is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He seems to be the guy that probably won himself the most money coming out of the combine because he checked a lot of boxes. He looked really fluid. He tested really well for a player of his size. But me personally, I'm a fan of Caleb Johnson. I like Travion Henderson. I like Quinshad Judkins, and I still like Omarion Hampton. But I just personally don't think any of these guys are going to end up going in the back end of the first round. I think they're going to fall into day 2, and teams are going to go and say, I'm not going to force my hand at running back in round 1. I'm going to wait because it's such a deep class. I can find any which guy I need for what I need to make happen offensively. So I think some teams are going to be really patient there. Now, again, anything's possible. Hampton could go, but he's the guy that I would say made himself the most money. And if there's going to be a guy that sneaks into the back end of the first round, it's Omarion Hampton.
Russ, final question. What's going on with Shedeur Sanders? It seems as if all of a sudden in the last couple of weeks, he's acquired the stink bomb, if you know what I mean. And I don't know what he's done to earn it. I'm just curious, how was he at the combine? He went to the East-West Shrine game and talked to everybody. I mean, what's going on with Sanders?
It feels like it's a little bit media-led because I've heard from 2 national media people with the same report of that they spoke to a rep from one team and a rep from another team. So you're talking about 2 people between 2 teams that are saying some bad things about the player, that he seems like he doesn't care, it was a bad interview, so on and so forth. And you kind of figured that this stuff was going to come out because you just wonder, is his dad going to be involved in the NFL process for him at all? There's people out there that obviously don't like his dad. So I think there's some of that. And when you look at what happened at the Shrine Bowl week, he had a great week. I know people that work there with Optimum Scouting and the Shrine Bowl. I'm very close with a lot of people there. And I talked to them and they said they had nothing but glowing reviews. So I think this is more media-led. And coming out of the combine, again, people are saying, yeah, there's 2 teams that really don't like him. Now, if we heard it from 7 or 8 or 9 different teams, okay, I think you can kind of run with that. But when you hear it from probably the same 2 people, I just really wonder if this is true or not. And I really doubt it. And I think coming out of the combine, there's a lot to say that Cleveland would be really interested in him. I think the Giants would be really interested in him. And I certainly think that the Raiders would be interested in him if they can't get themselves a bridge quarterback, whether it be Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson in the coming weeks. So I think Shedeur's still going to be a first-round pick. Maybe he falls a little bit, right? Maybe he gets down to 6 or somewhere around, that range into the early teens. But I look at a player that, to me, he played in a really bad system that forced him to get the ball out quickly. He played with an offensive line that was atrocious. He didn't get all the time in the world like Cam Ward did. He still made quick decisions and good throws, and he can fit the ball in tight windows. I really like what I saw from Shedeur on tape, and I like what I've heard from people that I'm pretty close with in the Shrine Bowl week and stuff like that. So I'm going to trust that and say this guy's still going to end up being a relatively early first-round pick.
He's Russell Brown. Okay, he's part of the USA Today network covering the Lions. He's an NFL draft analyst for Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. Follow him on X, Russ NFL Draft. Russ, RUSS NFL Draft. Russell, thanks for the time and the insight. We appreciate it. Hopefully we can check in between now and the draft.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Anytime.
And I'll ask Wyshynski that Wings question coming up on the other side here on Miller and Moulton. Miller and Moulton are very grateful to you, the listeners, for making us one of the highest rated shows for men, because the working man is one of the toughest demos to reach, and we do. Great sponsors like Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Sleep Treatment Direct, Game Day Men's Health, and Molly Maid recognize that, and we thank them. And if you own a business and working men are your clientele, the most cost-effective way to reach them is through us. Text Miller and Moulton at 21,000 or directly via X at that Mark Miller or the David
American Paint Supplies for nearly 30 years is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net. Sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit SleepTreatmentDirect.com. That's SleepTreatmentDirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound. Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh no!
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks slide peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor, a neighborly company.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Well, that was interesting behind the scenes.
What's that? The little glitch?
At least
Got
it waited.
just in the nick of time.
Yeah, waited till we went to commercial break, and then
True.
Then StreamYard was spinning on my end, even though the internet had come back 4 minutes. It's nothing, and then finally it went through.
Well, hopefully that'll be the last one.
Oh God,
it's got to be, right?
Whew. Hey, do me a favor. Text me when you get the check.
Okay. I will do that. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
I'd be surprised if it's not there today.
Okay. I'm going to call Greg here. Hi, Greg. Good. Hey, this is Rick Church. I'm filling in for Mark Miller today on the Miller and Moulton show. You all ready to go? Good deal. Okay, we'll be with you in about a minute, okay? All right. Thank you. Stand by. Ready to go. The Puck Daddy. I remember him back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
The Puck Daddy. What a great name.
Yes. And unfortunately, he wasn't allowed to bring it with him.
Of course not.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floor Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Mark off. He'll be back on Monday. Trent will join me for the bonus hour, 1 hour from now. We'll talk some Phillies and some spring training baseball with Frank Close coming up in a little more than 30 minutes' time. Been looking forward to talking to Greg Wyshynski for a while. Very busy today, obviously, with the trade deadline in 7 hours. He covers the NHL for ESPN, ESPN.com. Follow Greg on X at Wyshynski, WYSHYNSKI. Greg, it's David. Thanks for your time. How you been?
I'm good. I'm busy, but also sleepy. These West Coast teams need to get their act together. I'm not happy up until 2:30 last night to see if Mikko Rantanen is going to be a Dallas Star when I wake up. It was too much last night.
I was going to say, can we do these deals in between breakfast and lunch, please? Hello. In all seriousness, just got off the phone with an NFL draft guest, and he's a big Wings fan, and he's disgusted. So we'll try to cover as much ground as we can here. Is there anything you're hearing about the Wings, and what do they need just to make the damn playoffs?
Well, I mean, they need consistency. And as far as what they are looking for or what they might get, I couldn't tell you. I've spent the better part of 3 or 4 years now trying to understand what the Yzer plan is, Steve Yzerman's plan for that franchise. They've got some good players on the roster. They certainly, when those guys are playing well, can look like a playoff team. But I think, we were all waiting to see if they were going to make a significant swing for some of the guys that are already on the move. Brock Nelson going from the Islanders to Colorado last night, or Mikko Rantanen now apparently going from Carolina to Dallas. Like, the Detroit Red Wings are a team that everybody has said, okay, when they're close to contention, they're going to be all in on it, and they're going to make a big swing. And we really have not yet seen that from them. But again, deadline's at 3. They still got time left to do it. It just hasn't come to fruition quite yet.
All right. About the Brock Nelson deal, Avs gave up a 1 and a 3 and a young player for a rental. Now, obviously, they may re-sign him long term, but your thoughts just on the Brock Nelson, the Colorado deal?
Well, the player they gave up might be one of their top 3 prospects too. I mean, it's a really good deal, I think, for the Islanders, and I give their GM Lou Lamoriello credit, because he is someone who has really struggled with trading his own players. I mean, they've doubled down on the same roster for seemingly 4 years straight. So they were pushing to try to get an extension with Nelson. They couldn't do it, and then Lou flipped him to Colorado for a pretty hefty return. I don't know ultimately what his future is in Colorado, but I do know that he satisfies a hole that they've had in their lineup since they won the Cup, and Nazem Kadri left as a free agent to Calgary. They have been searching for an answer in that second line center spot behind Nathan McKinnon. They tried out Ryan Johansson. That was a disaster. They've tried Casey Middlestad. That hasn't worked to their satisfaction. Brock Nelson is a guy that feels like he was created in a lab to be a number 2 center. Like, great defensively, can get you 30 goals as well. And obviously, a really respected player. Even McKinnon was putting him over last night as somebody he's always respected in the league. So, Colorado's all in. They know what their Cup window looks like, and Brock Nelson certainly puts them in a much better position than they were previously in trying to win that Cup again.
And the Lightning are all in as well. 2 1s and a 2 for Yanni Gourde, who's an excellent face-off man and a depth forward, but then also maybe increasing their second line scoring as well. And he's got another year left on his contract. Your thoughts on the Lightning deal? 2 1s and a 2. Brisebois saying, I'd rather have a bunch of good players than a bunch of good prospects.
Yeah. I mean, that man loves to play hot potato with a draft pick. Let me tell you, that man has never met a draft pick he couldn't trade at the deadline. There have been times when it's really worked out, the overcompensation. Brandon Hagel obviously was a guy that 2 number 1 picks were sent to Chicago. They got the Lightning get him, and he's clearly one of the best wingers in the league right now. A member of that Team Canada that unfortunately won the Four Nations face-off, I say as an American. And, then they also sent a slew of draft picks to Nashville for Tanner Jeannot, and that did not work out. So it's no guarantee that this modus operandi that Brisebois has is always going to pay off. But I will say, the nostalgic vibes of bringing Gourde back is wonderful. I think he's a good fit for what that lineup needed, and obviously understands the organization implicitly, having been there for 2 Cup championships. And Bjorkstrand is the type of player with a real good north-south game that I think fits into a John Cooper system and could easily play in a number of different situations in that lineup. But most likely, I kind of wonder if he'll settle into that right wing spot across from Hagel and Cirelli. So, listen, the problem for the Lightning was not high-end talent. It's not goaltending. It has been offensive depth and quality depth at forward. And I think they got 2 guys that will really help address that.
Talking the NHL and the trade deadline, which is less than 7 hours away, with Greg Wyshynski of ESPN and ESPN.com. Follow him on X at Wyshynski, Wyshynski. All right. Are the Rangers really going to make a big deal with Buffalo? And are they making it to try to sneak in this year? Or are they making it because they envision putting the type of team together for next year?
Well, the kid that's been linked to them is JJ Peterka. He's an under 25 player. And frankly, has been the best offensive player outside of Tage Thompson on that Buffalo team for 2 years running. It is extremely curious that the Sabres would want to deal this guy.
Yes.
He seems very much like the solution rather than the problem up there. But some of the people I talked to yesterday framed it as he is eligible for an offer sheet from another team as a restricted free agent, and they might be a little concerned about his price tag inflating in a way they don't want it inflated through that process this summer. So that's why they're probably at least exploring the option. There were conflicting reports last night, national writers saying the Rangers were in on Peterka, one very, influential and tied in local writers saying they weren't. So, we'll see how that goes. But to answer your question, if they do make that deal, it will help them now, but it is a deal for later. I think the Rangers know inherently that they've got a real shot at getting in, and anytime you're holding, an entry ticket to the postseason, you've got a chance at doing something special. Everybody knows that, especially with what the Rangers have in goal. But he's a young player that will help them reshape their core going forward, and that's kind of an ongoing process. Jacob Trouba gets traded. There's a lot of talk around here in New York that Chris Kreider will no longer be a Ranger after the season, and a kid like Peterka coming in only addresses the need for them to get younger and faster.
Is this disastrous in Raleigh with Rantanen? I mean, they never make the big move, and they make the big in-season move, and the guy wants nothing to do with them and hasn't produced since he's been there, and now it looks like they're cutting their losses after 2 months. This seems disastrous.
Well, kind of a couple ways to look at that. I do think it's kind of a bad look for a new general manager in Eric Tolsky to take a swing like this with the assumption that Rantanen was going to come there and sign a long-term contract and be the difference maker in the playoffs for them that they've been searching for. They tried to get it with Jake Gensel last year. It didn't work to the point where they played for a cup and then he leaves. Rantanen is like sixth in the NHL over the past 4 or 5 postseasons in offense. And so they bring him in. You would expect to help them play for a cup. And then he doesn't want to sign a contract, and all of a sudden they're turning around and flipping him. But the other perspective is that you got to give them credit for not, participating in a sunken cost fallacy. Like they saw the writing on the wall. They could have kept him to see if they could take a good shot with him in the postseason, or they could get aggressive and turn him into something else. And so if it ends up being Dallas, and it seems like it's going to be Dallas if they can figure out the ins and outs of this contract, Dallas has a lot of pieces that could really help Carolina now and in the future, like a kid named Logan Stankoven, who's a really good young offensive forward. Wyatt Johnston would be the absolute grand slam home run if they got him in this deal, but I doubt that. There's a lot of players that, A, could help the Carolina Hurricanes now, and B, are going to be more contractually controllable than a pending UFA like Rantanen. So I think ultimately they'll get credit for making the best out of a bad situation, even if the initial swing might be looked at as being misguided.
Got a minute or so left. Who hasn't made a big move yet, and who haven't we mentioned that you think makes a deal in the next 6.5 hours?
All eyes, as usual, on Vegas. I mean, the Golden Knights every year pull a rabbit out of their hat and shock the world with what they do. They are the most aggressive team in the NHL. I don't know if they have like extra draft picks or something, but they just seem to always make these trades despite not really having a lot to trade. The one name that is obviously on the front of everybody's mind this morning is Brad Marchand of the Boston Bruins. Their captain, their leader. Everybody knows what he brings to the table: offense, the mouth, the rat-like nature on the ice, the total package. And his former coach, Bruce Cassidy, is the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights. There's been a lot of talk about them reaching out to the Bruins about Marchand's availability. The winds have seemed to shift on him maybe no longer being a Bruin after this trade deadline. And if that's the case, then Vegas is a more than logical landing spot. And I think he certainly fits the swagger of that organization in a way few people do.
And the Bruins with a rough week, a brutal loss against Nashville, and then a broken stick leads to them losing in the final 20 seconds to Carolina last night. So it's been a brutal week for the Bruins. Greg, appreciate your time and your insight, and load up on the caffeine, buddy.
Way ahead of you. Thanks for having me.
Greg Wyshynski covering the NHL for ESPN and ESPN.com. Follow him on X at Wyshynski, WYSHYNSKI. Very good at what he does, and he's been good to us over the years. Greg Wyshynski. NHL trade deadline is 3:00 today. I think the Lightning and Panthers have made their deals. Remember, Florida a few days ago gave up Spencer Knight and a first and brought in Seth Jones. And they put Tkachuk on LTIR. Now, I will say they did free up some money by doing that. Wouldn't it be something if they got Marchand? Wonder how Bruins fans feel about. Do they want Marchand to get a shot, even though he's got a ring, kind of like Bork did when he didn't have a ring? Or they think that this would just be awful? Miller and Moulton are very grateful to you, the listeners, for making us one of the highest rated shows for men, because the working man is one of the toughest demos to reach, and we do. Great sponsors like Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Sleep Treatment Direct, Game Day Men's Health, and Molly Maid recognize that, and we thank them. And if you own a business and working men are your clientele, the most cost-effective way to reach them is through us. Text Miller and Moulton at 21,000 or directly via X at that Mark Miller or the David
Do you have a
Moulton.
sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit sleeptreatmentdirect.com. That's sleeptreatmentdirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Musician. Yeah, 40 years is a long time, Sonny. But yeah. I'm actually surprised at some who are still with us. Also, Quincy no longer with us. No, first off, my understanding is Crosby, Malkin, and Letang all have no trade clauses. Letang can, the final 2 years of his deal, he can approve a trade to like 10 teams. Well, he's got 3 years left on a deal after this. So I don't think Letang can be traded for another year and a half. And I'm pretty sure Malkin and Crosby have no trade clauses, and they've told the Penguins they ain't going anywhere. Now, the fact that the Penguins gave them no trade clauses is absurd. Sorry. That's why I don't know how the Penguins rebuild this. It'd be nice if the Penguins had had somebody of value that they could have given the Panthers for Spencer Knight in a first-round pick.
because that's the type of deal they need to make. But you got your 3 rings, man. 4 finals and 3 rings. I mean, oh, Sonny, I'm with you. He's a top 10 player in the league. He may be top 5. He's amazing, Barkov. End to end, amazing.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
I'd like to thank Russell Brown and Greg Wyshynski for joining us back-to-back on the American Paint Supplies Hotline, your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. Frank Close, who covers the Phillies, he will join us in a little more than 15 minutes' time. We have our daily baseball talk. We'll make it Philly-centric today here on Miller and Moulton. Rick, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How sentimental are you as a sports fan? I asked that question in the wake of the conversation we were just having with Greg Wyshynski that Brad Marchand may get dealt today. Lifelong Bruin, great player for them. One of the last remnants, if not the last remnant, of the 2011 Cup team. And the Bruins are heading in the wrong direction. He's got value. They may need to retool here. He's near the end. And by near the end, he may only have 8+ weeks left in his career. How sentimental are you as a sports fan? Do you want your team to just say, hey, it's in our best interest to trade him, let's trade him? Or do you fall victim from time to time? Like, how'd you feel about Joe Mauer at the end with the Twins?
I mean, well, obviously Joe Mauer finished as a Twin, but I mean, what I was kind of thinking as you were saying that was, and this is not really the same because it wasn't a guy that was near the end of his career, but a guy that had spent, the bulk of his great career in Minnesota. And I was like 14 or 15 years old. And I actually cried when Rod Carew signed with the California Angels at the time. So, but with Mauer, I mean, appreciated everything he did. And I'm glad he finished as a Twin. Uh-oh, did we lose David again? David? Uh-oh. Well, there he goes. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope we can get David back quickly here. But yeah, so, I understand the sentimentality towards, sports heroes and, with the teams they're with. So, absolutely. But yes, the frozen look on David's face. Yes, and we've had a few David's in a hotel right now, so we're having some technical issues, but he's usually able to get back on within a minute or two. So hopefully we'll see him again pop back up here. Yeah, at any rate, but yeah, so I know where David was going, talking about Marchand, and I understand that. Obviously, as a sports fan, I always like my sports heroes to finish out their career with my team if they can. I remember being a big Joe Montana fan back in the day, and I thought it was pretty sad that he finished his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. Even they only played like, I think, 2 years. One of them very successful. So Adam says, talk some XFL. Is that still a thing? I thought it was just called the I thought it was it's not the XFL anymore, is it? In fact, I thought I heard a story yesterday. Yeah, the UFL, that's what it is. Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, I thought I heard a bizarre story on the news yesterday that the UFL is actually having some labor relation problems. And I don't know if it's like to the point where they're going to talk about a work stoppage or something like that. That would be incredibly insane, would it not? But who's my favorite all-time Vikings player? Boy, that's hard to say. I was a big fan of Chris Carter. I loved Chris Carter. I was very young, but Fran Tarkenton's certainly one of my all-time favorite Minnesota Vikings. No doubt about that. Randy Moss was great. There's some great defensive players. John Randall was a big fan of him. Just went into the Hall of Fame not too long ago. Can I talk about John Cena? I'm not a wrestling guy, so probably not. No, I can't. I'm just waiting for David to get back because, I'm obviously kind of lost without him here. So, are you the only one that saw what coming? That's talk Broncos. Hey man, I think the Broncos are great. Really do. I think they've got an incredible future with Bo Nix, and I don't think people were too thrilled with Sean Payton in the first year, but they, cleared out a lot of problems, and I think the Broncos are going to be a great team. Did I ever see a Vikings game? No, I did not, unfortunately. They moved to the Dome in 1982, and I remember that because I did see a game in 1982. I was a senior in high school. So I went, I did go to a Vikings. My first Vikings game, unfortunately, was in the Metrodome, which the Metrodome is not too bad of a stadium for football, but for baseball, it was just horrendous. And somebody else said, how about talk about them Packers? Well, of course, as a Vikings fan, I'm not super fond of the Packers, but that's rivalries, right? Well, thank you for, I'm just trying to hang in there waiting for David to reconnect. Like I said, this has happened to us a time or two in the last day or two, but hopefully we can get him back up here shortly. Let's see. Detroit Paula, hate the Packers. Well, you got to admit the NFC North has about as strong as rivalries as any division in football, right? I think we got David back here. Let's see.
The best laid plans of mice and men.
Well, you know what? I somehow or other kept it going, David. People were texting me and asking me questions about the Vikings and about the Twins. We were talking about, sports heroes and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, because I left you just by asking about how romantic are you, and there's a chance that the Bruins, trade. I don't know if he falls under all-time great, but I think he would qualify as an all-time great. And so, just curious.
He's loved by the fans, certainly.
See, the reason why, and I'm pretty sentimental, but the reason that I would be okay with it is if he was okay with it. Like, I don't think I would just trade Brad Marchand and have him tearfully at his locker. I mean, I would talk to him about it and say, listen, I don't even think we're going to make the playoffs. We certainly don't have a Stanley Cup run in us. I know you don't know how much longer you're going to play, but it's not going to be much longer. Do you want me to send you someplace where you actually got a shot at this thing? Okay. If you want to just play out your final 20 games here, I'll respect your wishes. But if you want one more shot at the Cup, I'll give it to you. All right. And if so, give me a list of 3 and I'll make it happen.
And again, David, a somewhat similar story, but different in that when the Minnesota Timberwolves traded Kevin Garnett, God, it was heartbreaking, and it was wonderful to finally see him win that championship with the Boston Celtics.
Right.
Right. But for the longest time, Garnett said, I don't want to leave. And they went to him and they did that deal with his blessing.
Exactly.
Right. So as a T-Wolves fan, you had to be happy with it, right?
And when he came back at the end of his career, the love he got outside of ownership, but from the fans, was amazing. He's got some problems with the owner, Glenn Taylor, but as far as the fans, loved seeing him come back.
Well, fortunately for him, he's not going to be the owner much longer.
Probably not.
And don't be surprised.
That story tends to change every couple of weeks.
I don't think so. The decision's in. I don't see how the NBA goes back on it. I really don't. The arbiter ruled. Okay. Don't see how they can go back on that. We'll switch gears. It's our daily baseball talk coming up. Frank Close covers the Phillies. He's in Clearwater. We will talk to him next. Trent Bally will join us at the top of the hour for the bonus hour of Miller and Moulton.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or NolanAgency.com. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh, no.
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks slide peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor. A neighborly company.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
We offered Rick the job. Rick said, yeah, the hours suck. I am not doing this. Okay. And then
thrust into duty.
And also right now, quite frankly, financially, I don't know if we could afford it, Miller or Moulton. So that's a big reason why Mark is producer / co-host. Rick, did you see my text?
I did.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Well, we got in a few minutes of good Minnesota Vikings talk anyways, David. It's what the people want, you know. And then somebody asked me about the Denver Broncos and said all the topics David hates to talk about. I don't know what that means, but I said the Broncos are exciting. What a future.
There are 2 avid listeners in our Twitch chat room who talk Broncos nonstop, and and it's gotten at times to the point in which it's like, guys, I mean, can we talk about something else, or can we just put the Broncos to the side? They're not playing, So, when they saw an opening, I have no doubt ambient and Irish football jumped right through that opening. Like a running back seeing the hole. Boom.
Well, it's kind of what I deferred to the messages, David. I said, well, what do you guys want to talk about? I went into my Rod Caruth and then my Joe Mauer, and someone asked my all-time favorite Vikings. I said Chris Carter.
My God, which is so funny.
John Randall.
Love John Randall.
Yes, sir.
Chris Carter.
Jared Allen, who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
To deal with Chris Carter as a member of the media was an absolute pain in the ass.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that.
And I love my diva wide receivers, but man, was he a pain in the butt. I covered the Vikings, Sonny, in the Metrodome.
Yes, pronunciation is correct. Oh, Kirby and the Baggy. We were talking about my first Vikings game. Unfortunately, it was at the Metrodome, not Metropolitan Stadium, and how much it sucked for baseball. The Baggy. It was a joke.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Mark is off. He'll be back on Monday. Trent Bally to join us for the whole bonus hour at the top of the hour. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. My thank once again to Rick Church, producing and engineering back in our Southwest Florida studios. Rick, we really appreciate you coming in. We know what a big fan you are at doing a morning show, as we all are. Okay, so thanks so much for doing this. Frank Close is kind enough to get up early and do an appearance on Miller and Moulton. He covers the Phillies for 97.3 ESPN in Philadelphia. And you can follow Frank on X at Frank Close with a K, Klose. Frank, it's David. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. By the way, in your what used to be Twitter, page here, it says you're a musician. What do you play?
Instrument-wise, geez, I can play. I usually play guitar and sing if I do an acoustic duo. That tends to be what I do more. But I can play the bass. I can play drums. So a little bit of everything.
Do you have a band? Do you and a couple guys just kind of head out and jam with fellow bandmates? How do you do this?
I do a little acoustic duo in some of the breweries in the Philadelphia area. So that's kind of a hobby, and I also have done a lot of church gigs. I played a lot of church funerals. But
Well, I find it very interesting and appreciate anybody who has artistic talent, whatever that art may be. So all the best with that. Hey, my first question about the Phillies is, so how did they handle last year's playoff disappointment? Are they saying it was one bad week and we had 6 really good months? Or did that week tell them something about themselves?
I think it did tell them a little something about themselves. You know, the lineup the way it was just kind of wasn't producing down the stretch. You saw them lean heavily in a lot of their early success. I mean, they did win 95 games, but when you look at the season as a whole, they got to that point where they were in London back in July, and they just seemed to hit a wall, and they were basically a 500 team after that. And a lot of that was, you know, nagging injury here or there. JT Realmuto, he got hurt while he was in London. And, you know, when they came back, Alec Boehm wasn't the same. You know, he was an all-star the first half, and they kind of realized that kind of midway through the lineup, if not everybody is firing in all cylinders, that they're having trouble with production. And so one thing that they've done to address that, they didn't really add any too big an impact bat. I mean, the only real free agent offensive piece they added was outfielder Max Kepler, which gives them a left-handed bat a little bit deeper in the lineup. But they're going to reconfigure this lineup going into this year. They're going to bat Trey Turner lead off finally, like they kind of thought that they would do when they signed him. Bryce Harper's going to bat second. You know, in the I guess in the trends of batting their best hitter second, they're going to do that, and then that also allows them to let Kyle Schwarber hit in the 4 spot. Gives them a little bit more from the left side beyond the first 3 batters. I know it's only moving it down a little bit, but they're kind of hoping that will take advantage of Schwarber's power and RBI ability, and also help get some speed at the top of the lineup, and certainly give Trey Turner getting on base and stealing a base. And Bryce Harper's behind him. Trey Turner's going to score a lot of runs. So they really kind of reimagined their lineup in response to last year.
What are they thinking about Realmuto? Okay, obviously when healthy, he's one of the 3 best catchers in baseball. Heck, when injured, he's probably one of the 5 best catchers in baseball. But, you know, he's now in his early 30s, coming up, I think, on the last year of that 5-year deal. I mean, this is when you usually see catchers in the wear and tear, and they're not what they used to be. I'm just curious, what are they thinking about JT, and do you think they re-sign him long term?
Well, two different things to talk about with that question. The first is the Phillies have sort of said that JT Realmuto might get some action in the outfield. They're trying to find a way to take some of the pressure off of his knees. You know, as you said, as you get to this age, you can't really defy Father Time, right? So you have to try to keep him as fresh as possible. So the possibility of him playing some left field was floated by Phillies manager Rob Thompson this year, and he seems to be on board with it. And the backup catcher position the last few years has been held by Garrett Stubbs, and one of their prospects, I don't even know if you'd call him a prospect anymore because he's kind of been around the last few years, although he's been hurt a lot, is Rafael Marchand, who's a switch hitting catcher, who I think in an ideal world, with some of the tools that he has shown in the major leagues in his limited action, hopefully could play more for them. Garrett Stubbs has a minor league option. They could send Stubbs to the minor leagues and hopefully have a scenario where Rafael Marchand plays a lot more than backup catchers have in the JT Realmuto era. And so that gets me to next year. You know, if you look around, there's really not a lot of catching options that will be available as a free agent next year. And inside the Phillies system, aside from Marchand, who's projected maybe to be the backup, aside from him taking over full-time or demonstrating that he could be a starter in Major League Baseball, their best catching prospect is all the way down in low Class A and is 18 years old. So Phillies will have to either re-sign Realmuto to a short-term deal and try to do more of the same and see if they can keep him fresh, or they're going to have to find another catcher somewhere else. And that's easier said than done because let's face it, in Major League Baseball, a lot of the best offensive players move off the position because they're trying to keep their body in the best shape possible.
Yeah, I think there's 20-plus teams who are looking for upgrades at catcher, quite frankly. Frank Close covers the Phillies, 97.3 ESPN in Philadelphia. You can follow Frank on X at Frank Close, KLOS. I was a little surprised that they let the bullpen go to some degree in free agency. I know they had a bad series against the Mets, but man, they pitched well last year. And a lot of those guys are proven relievers. Was it just a dollars and cents thing, or did they feel they needed a new bullpen?
The Phillies lost to free agency Jeff Hoffman, who really emerged as a top right-handed relief arm in Philadelphia after the Phillies actually made a waiver claim from the Twins in late spring training a few years ago. And they also lost Carlos Estevez, who they traded for at the trade deadline. Now, the only piece they really got to replace those two in terms of a back-end arm was Jordan Romano, who pitched for the Toronto Blue Jays previously and was an all-star closer with the Blue Jays if you go back 2 and 3 years. But he's kind of a question mark. He's coming off an injury-plagued year. He didn't pitch well last year when he was on the mound, so he's kind of a wild card. And, if you look at the Phillies bullpen as a whole, Jose Alvarado had a down year last year. He's back. He looks pretty good. I mean, he could get them some of those final outs at the back end of games. Matt Strahm, an all-star last year with an ERA in the ones, and even at the all-star break, it was still below 1. Made him an all-star last year. But the Phillies have some arms in that bullpen, and they seem to need to have the flexibility to have room for one of the arms that's not going to make the starting rotation. Taijuan Walker did not pitch well last year. He had a really flat, low velocity fastball and sinker last year, and the sinker was his pitch. For the batter, when Taijuan Walker's going well, the batter sees both pitches the same, and that really keeps them off their feet. And so that there could be the need for a landing spot for him. He is actually looking pretty well again this spring. His velocity's back up. He's got to go somewhere. And kind of the under the radar signing the Phillies made was Joe Ross, who last year in Milwaukee sort of embraced the swingman role as a reliever and a spot starter. He gives their rotation more depth, and he kind of gives their bullpen more depth. So on the surface, they lost 2 really good right-handed back-end arms. Maybe they have one back, and the other part of it is it's just going to have to work itself out, or some of the younger guys might have to step up more. Orion Kirkering is a need. He came up as a rookie a couple of years ago and really impressed. This could be the time that he steps up into a late inning role. So the Phillies bullpen was indeed a disappointment. The playoffs there. Part of it too was just the heroics of Pete Alonso, but they could be in an okay spot. And I think the Phillies kind of went into this thinking, well, there really wasn't a lot of opportunities to add a dominant bullpen arm, and so they took the shot on Jordan Romano, and they'll acquire something at the deadline if they need to. I think that's kind of an attitude that Dave Dombrowski takes is, whatever holes there are, because the team is pretty deep, they're going to be very much in the picture in the NL East. He can add what he needs later.
Yeah, Dave is very aggressive no matter where he's been, and always seems to grab a piece that they need in June or July. All right. The lazy narrative is the Phillies are heading in the wrong direction. Lost in the World Series, then they lost the NLCS. Now they lost in division round, so they're heading in the wrong direction. However, I could argue last year's team was the best Phillies team of the last 3. And so, and just kind of like the Braves won the World Series arguably with the worst team they've had this decade. And the Phillies probably beat the 2 best Braves teams they've had this decade. So just curious what the Phillies think of this group during this 4-year run in spring training.
Yeah, you think back to other iterations of this Phillies team. I thought the 2008 team that beat the Rays was not as good as the team in 2011 that
right, lost to the Cardinals, right?
Cardinals in the playoffs. So yeah, sometimes it's a matter of what momentum you have as you head down the stretch, and that was the Phillies' problem last year. I mean, you don't win 95 games and not have a lot of talent, but for those reasons I mentioned earlier, they were not going into the playoffs all cylinders firing. So I think for them this year, they really want to make sure that down the stretch they don't fall apart. Thus, the more rest for JT Realmuto, Thus, one of our top prospects had Tommy John surgery last year. Andrew Painter, his name is. He's the number 8 prospect overall in baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. They kind of set him back. So if he's at an innings limit, he'll be around down the stretch. So I think the way they're setting things up, they recognize that they need to go into the playoffs hot. And I don't think it's a matter of the talent they have. I think last year they felt the need to do the opposite. They felt the need to get off to a really hot start. And then, boy, did they. And then they just couldn't keep that momentum up for 162 games, which is a long season. So I think this time you're going to see them giving more rest to these veterans, the ones that you might say are aging out, because once you get to your mid-30s, that's old in baseball years. So I think more rest for the Kyle Schwarbers and the JT Realmutos and even Bryce Harper a little bit so that they can have them fresh down the stretch. So I don't think that they're done by any means or they're fading off completely. I just think that they went into the playoffs very flat last year. And I think it's fair to say, too, that with this core that they have, the Harper, Turner, Realmuto, et cetera core, it's probably time to win something now because you just can't cheat age.
And especially when you have arguably the best pitcher in the National League in Zach Wheeler. Frank, thanks for your time and your insight. We really appreciate it. Enjoy Clearwater for the rest of the month and safe travels.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Frank Close covers the Phillies, 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on X, Frank Close with a K, Klose. Phillies won the division last year, 6 games ahead of both the Mets and the Braves, but got beat by the Mets in the divisional round, which is kind of the fate that happened to the Phillies the year before when they were clearly the best team in the division, and the Phillies got them in the division round for the second year in a row. Why do I have a feeling that not all 3 of those teams are going to make the playoffs? Like, people are just assuming that the Phillies, Braves, and Mets are all going to make the playoffs. And I wonder if the team that might miss is the Mets. I mean, they've already had 2 starters that they've lost to injury. I'm just wondering. You
got to figure out probably only one team's going to come out of the Central, right?
Well, yeah, and then the question is if 2 comes out of the West, and I do think Arizona, who lost out in a tiebreaker last year, I think Arizona makes the playoffs. I think Arizona's a 90-plus win team.
The Dodgers, of course, are a given.
Right.
So
and then we'll see if but if the Padres think of themselves as a World Series contender, you ask the Dodgers when the playoffs were over, they thought the World Series was the best of 5 against the Padres. They said to themselves, when we got out of the San Diego series, we knew we were going to win the World Series. That San Diego was better than the Mets and better than the Yankees. That to them, that was the World Series. So right there, you've got 7 teams for 6 spots. Whoever wins the Central, 3 in the East, 3 in the West. Last year, it was Arizona who didn't make it. Lost out in a tiebreaker. So somebody's not making it here that will be crushed.
I could see the Mets being the left out team, David.
I could too.
Yeah.
I could too. Like 89 got it done last year. I don't know if 89 will be good enough this year in the National League. So just talking a little baseball. The season starts a week from Monday in Japan. The season in the States starts 3 weeks from yesterday, the 27th. So we're down to either 10 or 20 days until the start of the baseball season. Miller and Moulton. Trent Bally is going to join us for the bonus hour on the other side.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or NolanAgency.com.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. American Paint Supplies. For nearly 30 years is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Do you have a sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit sleeptreatmentdirect.com. That's sleeptreatmentdirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, sounds good. My microphone is not working, so it's just my computer
Well, that's
mic.
okay. That's okay. Sometimes my internet doesn't work. So you be prepared to do the hour with Rick. Okay. Because for whatever reason, the internet in Florence, Alabama has not been kind. So
You've been having a fun tournament? I know it's over now, but
yeah, I love the play-by-play. That's
Yeah.
what I wish I did. So yeah, I love this stuff. I love the one bid leagues. I love the emotions that's involved in everything. You know, I love it.
That's great. Good to see you, Rick, by the way. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, I think, for the first time. Trent?
Yes.
Okay. You're getting a lot of love on the message board there. People are excited to see you.
Oh, I love the Twitch chat room.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floor Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Mark off until Monday, and in this, the bonus hour, Trent Bally will sit in with us from 9 to 10 in the East, in the 239 and the 904, along with Rick Church, who's producing and engineering back in our Southwest Florida studios. I'm David Moulton in Florence, Alabama. After my little stint in the ASUN playoffs ended last night, I'll be heading home later today. Top of the morning to you, Trent. How are you?
Morning, David. Always fun to talk sports with you, so this is going to be a blast. I will say, today has been, these are the days you live for in sports talk radio, because I had our show this morning until 9. Now I get to do an hour with you. It's going to be the highlight of my day. And then I'm also doing the afternoon show as well, because we got a big promotion going on with one of our sponsors. So I'm doing 3 shows today. I am full of you-know-what and vinegar today, David.
Well, first off, you're almost always full of you-know-what and vinegar. And I think our audience right now is going, man, that's a lot of energy for Miller and Moulton. What the heck? Big question, though. Are you getting paid by all 3 shows, or are you only getting paid by one of them?
Well, because it's you asking this question, I will answer as honestly as I possibly can. I'm getting paid. I'm not getting paid enough, as you know, but
Well, I definitely know that. Okay, I used to work for him too, so I know that. Okay, but are you at least being paid to do both mornings and afternoons, or are you basically doing afternoons for free and you got paid to do the morning?
I'm getting paid for both. I also get a
Okay.
weekend stay at said sponsor. May or
Nice.
may not be, so I'm fired up, David. And Michigan State won the Big Ten last night. I haven't slept, and I don't think I'm going to sleep anytime soon.
Tough beat for the system last night, Trent. All right. There was a time yesterday in which we were getting 7.5 with Iowa, but by tip-off, we were only getting 6.5, and Michigan State won by 7. That's our second half-point loss. We're 4-2 this week with the system, both losses by a half a point. All right.
I have been following said system, David. I've been following it like gospel, and I'm not going to lie. Even I took the Iowa Hawkeyes plus 6.5 last night, and I was with you till the very end. It looked like Iowa might backdoor cover that sucker, as you like to say, but they did not.
Very quickly, try to take as much fandom out of this as you can. I think Sparty's going to be a 2 seed. Do you think they can live up to their seeding? Do you think this is an Elite 8 team at the very least? Did I ask that to myself? Okay.
Oh, there goes now there goes Trent.
Right. Okay.
Oh, wait, there he is. He's back.
Did you hear the question?
I did. And
Okay.
I like how you prefaced it, because I do have to completely take my alumni status out of it.
Right.
But I think Michigan State, obviously the problem is they can't shoot the three well at all, right? So you can get away with that a little bit when you have elite defense. And another thing, David, is this is the madness where it's one and done, survive and advance. In a 7-game series, they'd have no chance to win the national championship. But I do think they can live up to the seeding. I think they can make a Final Four. We'll see.
Really? So you think that Michigan State, if paired up against, and we believe the 1 seeds are going to be Auburn and Florida from the SEC, Duke and Houston.
Yeah.
You think Michigan State can beat one of those 4 teams? Because in theory, you're going to end up playing an SEC team. I mean, because Duke and Houston are going to get Tennessee and Alabama, I think, as the 2 seeds up against them. So you're going to be a 2 seed having to go through either Auburn or Florida in all likelihood, I believe, to get to a Final Four. You think this Michigan State team offensively, because those 2 teams will score points, you think Michigan State can score enough points to beat Auburn or Florida?
Well, so that's the question, right? And I do think the SEC top to bottom is a much better conference than the Big Ten. It's not even close. I think there's really only 2 or 3 Big Ten teams that have the ceiling, but Michigan State's one of them. And I do think because of that defense, they're able to just completely shut the water off on teams, especially late. You know, they have the depth. They run 10 deep. They have probably the best coach in any matchup unless they're playing St. John's or something like that. So for all those reasons, I think it's possible. I still definitely think the SEC's better. I think Florida's much better. I think, Auburn's much better. But if the question is, can Michigan State make the Final Four? Absolutely.
I would like to see Sparty just live up to their seeding, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay. It concerns me sometimes that they can't put the ball in the ocean if they were standing in it. And usually in the tournament, you've got to score about 75 plus points a game to live up to your seeding and go deep into the tournament. And I just have a feeling that Michigan State's going to have that one game, Trent, in the second or third round when they only put 63 points on the board. And are they going to win it?
Yeah, and David, that's a very fair concern. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they're bringing up, right? They're 350-something in the nation and shooting a 3. That's terrible. And what we've been talking about locally here is we're not asking you to be top 5 in the nation. We're just asking you to not be 350 plus. Can you be like St. John's, who's also not a great three-point shooting team, but they're way closer to the middle of the pack than they are the end of it, like Michigan State. Like, I remember early this season, we were talking about how concerning it is that they're the worst three-point shooting team in the Big Ten. That's an understatement. You have to give the full picture here. They're a terrible three-point shooting team. And that is concerning. Absolutely.
I was going to say 357. I believe, 365?
Yes.
The number of Division I teams. Wow. They are in the bottom 10 in all of to think that they're a top 10 team in the country and they're actually in the bottom 10 in a major stat.
And that David, that speaks to how great they are in other areas. You know what I'm saying? That speaks to how great defensively they've been and winning a conference that's probably going to get 10 or 11 bids, which I know you think is ridiculous and I do too, but that's a different discussion.
It is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Okay? No, seriously. I'll give you a team. This bothers me. Pick a Big Ten team, pick an SEC team that you want to take out. I don't care. Xavier's like 11-6 in conference, 20 plus wins. Seriously? We're going to leave that team out? The second best team of a top 10 conference? We really can't find one of the 37 at-large bids available for Xavier. We have to put in 11th team for the Big Ten. We have to put in a 13th team from the SEC. Come on. I mean,
David, I've been listening to you and Mark all week, so I know, the punching bags are Oklahoma, Texas. These are teams. I'm with you. They don't deserve to be in there, but we know.
Hey, what about Nebraska? What about Nebraska or Ohio State? I mean, you mean to tell me, I know they're both from Ohio, Xavier or Ohio State, who deserves it?
Xavier,
okay.
No doubt.
Xavier or Nebraska, who deserves it? Okay,
Xavier.
Especially lately. I mean, that's all. I mean, come on. Both conferences are getting double-digit bids. Do they have to get one more? That's all I'm saying. And
I'm with you on that too, David. My favorite example of this is Indiana State from last year.
Yes.
I know the committee will be damned before they put in 2 teams from the Missouri Valley Conference, Arch Madness. But why not? Why not? Those teams absolutely deserve a bid more than your Ohio States or your Oklahomas or even Arkansas, just because John Calipari's a big name, right? I mean, there's a lot of stuff here going on at play. I wish they would give the mid-majors a little bit more love, and Xavier, unfortunately, is getting the brunt of that.
And I would argue mid-major's Xavier's a step above mid-major. It's somewhere in between mid-major and power conference, to be honest with you. There was a day, and it was, granted, it was early in your life, but there was a day when the Missouri Valley got 4. I actually think in the last 20 years, they got 5 one year. Okay, and now they can't get 2. I mean, that's how bad it's become. Like Billy Packer had one of his all-time rants on Selection Sunday because the Missouri Valley was getting 4, and he was completely bent out of shape about it and thought they didn't deserve more than basically 1 or 2. So anyway, I love the Valley. You brought up a sore spot with me. Love the Valley. Trent Bally joining us from someplace in Michigan. By the way, where do you do your show from?
Grand Rapids, which is about 20 minutes away from where I grew up in small little Granville, Michigan. So I'm right downtown. I'm in the heart of downtown. If you know Grand Rapids, which I wouldn't expect you to, I am in Monroe Center area, which is right in the heart of the city, baby. I'm on the 9th floor here at the iHeart Studios. I get to look out at the beautiful skyline and the gray skies here, David. It's March. It's at least warming up a little bit.
Hold on a second. Did you say beautiful skylines in Grand Rapids in the same sentence? Okay. I mean, Rick Church professes his love for where he grew up in Duluth. Okay. But yesterday, he didn't even go beautiful skylines. Loves Duluth, but didn't go beautiful skylines. Rick, does Duluth have beautiful skylines?
No, it has a beautiful lake view.
Okay. Yeah.
Skylines? Nah, not really.
By the way, Rick, I got an email. Okay, I probably should do this off air, but anyway, got an email from a guy who is doing play-by-play of the minor league baseball team in Duluth this summer. Okay, and said that you need to come up to the booth and say hi. Larry Carsey is his name. Okay,
really?
And he
Are they
says,
still the Duluth Dukes?
Okay, they are the Huskies.
The Huskies. Okay.
Huskies.
Many years ago, they were the Duluth Dukes. So
he is doing radio play-by-play. He lives in the 239. He's heading up to Land of 10,000 Lakes for the spring and summer, and he's doing Duluth Huskies baseball. He wants you to stop on by at some point this summer.
I'll give it my best shot. Probably unlikely, but who knows? They play in an ancient stadium up there called Wade Stadium that's been around for like 100 years. Seriously.
That's what minor league baseball is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I loved covering the NIPEN League in the late 1990s, and literally there were ballparks in the New York Penn League. They called it the NIPEN, New York Penn League, that Babe Ruth played in. All right. I loved that. I absolutely loved it. But then again, I'm an old soul, but I loved it. And I also no press.
I'm not gonna lie, that
also,
tracks, David.
Trent, during your illustrious career, which is just beginning, and hopefully you're going to do 30 or 40 more years, I just want you to keep this in mind. If you ever end up covering a baseball game with no press box, and so you have to sit on the roof to take in the game or to shoot your highlights for the game for the local news, there are at least 4 ballparks that used to be in the NIPEN that had no press box, in which you had to climb up on the roof if you wanted to get highlights. Let me tell you something. Getting the hot dogs and the soda for dinner was the most dangerous and difficult part of the assignment.
David, I would expect nothing less from you. Duty calls. We're going to get this job done, and we're going to get it done well, damn it.
Damn right. 2 hot dogs, a drink. Hold on a second. I got runners on base. Miller and Moulton. More with Trent Bally on the other side.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
Honey, you want to come out? I haven't seen you since Glass Doctor installed our custom shower enclosure.
No thanks.
Well, you can't keep eating breakfast in the shower, and laminating your magazines is getting expensive. You remember we have guests coming over tonight, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see the shower.
It's our neighbors, and I highly doubt they want to be hanging out in our bathroom.
The shower's so good, you'll never want to leave. Visit glassdoctor.com today and schedule an appointment online.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Which I know you think is ridiculous, and I do too, but that's a different discussion.
It is. Oh, where's that coming from?
I was checking the audio. I guess I sound fine. I was concerned.
Oh, you sound fine. You sound fired up. Ready to go. Oh, yeah, you're good.
When are you heading back home?
Let's see. When does the show end? I mean, don't get me wrong. I find Florence, Alabama to be quaint. It's got a lot of history to it. Tennessee River behind me is beautiful. Big ass dam behind me. Okay. It's also 38 degrees. And no, it's time to go.
Don't they have you? I was listening yesterday. Don't they have you staying at some high-end place?
Yes, which is why it's shocking that the internet doesn't work. We're at the Renaissance, like Shoals Hotel and Spa.
Did you get the shakes when you pulled in?
Well, this is how. Now, I will say, do you know what's cured me of the shakes? Doing the NFL with Joe and Troy. Because the hotels they stay at, okay, I don't get the shakes when I go to Naples anymore. Because trust me, okay, those are some hotels. But so you pull into this place and it's like, well, where's the hotel? And there's the workout room and a spa, and I'm watching some masseuse give a back rub to someone in a towel, and I'm like, I don't know if I should be seeing this, but where's the hotel? And apparently there's like a hill behind it, and you drive around, and behind the hill is the hotel. And it's like, son of a gun.
That is outstanding. Yeah, you've made me laugh a lot over the last year and a half or whatever. One of the hardest times I've ever laughed was when you said you get the shakes when you cross into Collier County.
I did forever. Wait, we're going into Collier? We're going to Naples? Oh, I can't go to Naples. Okay. Why? I get the shakes. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, yes, Whitecaps games, by the way. Some of the best dates here in West Michigan. Whitecaps games. You go on a Friday, $2 hot dogs, $2 beers. David, you would love a good West Michigan Whitecaps game. Some single A baseball.
Wow. I mean,
you get the occasional Detroit Tiger doing a rehab stint.
So let me get this straight. You said date. So you and a significant other and you go, that's $20, right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
How
you
much
pay
is
more
parking?
for parking than you do for the
Now,
actual.
see, I would never, I would turn to her and I would say, listen, this could break the relationship right here. I don't pay this kind of money to park. I don't know what to tell you. I don't do it. And I'm certainly not doing it for this. Okay.
Listen, I like you. I don't like you that much.
Well, I mean, I don't know yet if I like you that much, but I know right now there's no way I like you this much. No. When I can buy 2 tickets and get dogs and beers for less than what I have to pay to park, no way. No.
It is one of the most fun things to do in the summer here. Me and my brothers go to like a few games every year. It's awesome.
Your brother get engaged yet?
No.
Let me tell you something. She may just walk. Okay. I could see. I'm getting impatient for her. I can only imagine where she is on the, hey, where's the ring, dude?
David, you would love this because she bought an apartment, not bought, but she's renting an apartment in downtown Detroit, like spitting distance from Ford Field, in an attempt to sway him to go there. I mean, I mean, you get an apartment in downtown Detroit. That's pretty.
Somebody's a little more all in on this relationship than the other, I think is fair to say. Wow. He could blow this. I'm just telling you. Okay, she can have somebody else sleep at that apartment. I mean, trust me. That won't take long.
If it happens, I will tell you.
Just saying. Just saying.
Yeah, Sonny, closer than Greektown, actually. That's a good call. I love
it. You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Mark will be back on Monday. Trent Bally joining us from Grand Rapids, Michigan for the bonus hour. Rick Church producing and engineering in our Southwest Florida studios. Rick can go back to sleeping in beginning tomorrow. Okay, he can't wait for Mark.
Thank goodness, David. Boy, did I have a power nap yesterday.
Yeah, aren't they the best?
I was home at 10:45 and out by 10:50.
And did you wake up before 1?
Not even close. It was getting dark outside when I woke up. So no, I needed that.
Trent, you now doing mornings, you've learned all about the power nap and its value, and it's one of the 5 greatest things in Western civilization. I'm just curious because you're such a nice person, such a nice guy. What's the maddest you've ever been at someone? There's a method to my madness, so play along. What is the maddest you've ever been, man or woman, family member, boss, coworker? What's the maddest you've ever been?
That is such a great question. I mean, there's so many ways I can take this. You're going to laugh. Honest to God, probably when I got in a fight with my buddy who's a diehard Packers fan when Trey Flowers had the hands to the face game. You remember that? When there was the 2 holding penalties, both on 3rd and long in the 4th quarter, and they weren't even hands to the face at all. Both replays, they disagreed, what have you. And he is like one of the nicest guys, and he and I have never, ever, ever come close to blows. We almost fist fought. I was very upset. But I'm curious to hear why you're asking this question.
Well, I have to ask Rick one question first. Rick, everything's frozen on my end. Is the audio going through okay?
Yeah, everything's fine.
Okay.
We're good. I can even you're moving. We're set.
Okay. I asked because if you've been with us, for whatever reason, the internet in Florence, Alabama has been very sketchy. So
we've had a few technical difficulties.
Yes. So I hope remain part of the show at least for 37 more minutes. But I mention it, Trent, because apparently this little Myles Garrett Cleveland Browns thing has gotten personal. I don't know if you saw, but Tom Pelissero reported probably in the final hour of your morning show that Myles Garrett recently picked up the phone and called Browns owner Jimmy Haslam and wanted to speak with him because he wanted to meet with him face-to-face. And Jimmy Haslam wants nothing to do with Myles Garrett. Wouldn't answer the phone, wants no part of a meeting,
Basically, he's like, shut up, play, cash the checks. I'm not interested, and we ain't trading you.
Talk about sour grapes, David, as we have now lost David, and hopefully he comes right back.
Yeah, there you go. It takes a couple of minutes, so just hang in there, Trent. Keep going.
I certainly will. Look, this is levels of.
I had to kill like a minute or two myself. An hour ago, people were asking me who my favorite Minnesota Viking was, being a big Vikings fan.
Oh, well,
so I can relate to your story about them, not liking Packer fans. It looks like David's popped back on here.
Well, that's great. I remember Aaron Rodgers when he was going through his whole fiasco a couple of years ago with the Packers when they had that nasty breakup, and he's like, well, you can't call me because I get bad service. You got to FaceTime me. Everyone knows you got to FaceTime me. These breakups vary in degrees of ugliness, but if what David's talking about gets even worse, this Myles Garrett situation with Cleveland is going to get ugly.
So the Browns want no part of honoring his request. Myles Garrett has said, I'm not going to show up. And that includes games, just so you know, I'm not showing up.
Good for him.
Oh, really? So you're taking the player side in this. What if, now I'm just curious, what if Hutchinson took this approach with the Lions, by the way?
Well, it's hard to even put yourself in that mindset because Myles Garrett, in my opinion, has done nothing but the right thing for Cleveland, a franchise that's hard to do the right thing for, as we know, right? Honor the damn request. He's one of the best players you've ever had. He's a class act. He wants out because you are inept and you, quite frankly, your front office has no idea what it's doing. Let him out. Work with him a little bit.
I am guessing there's one big deadline in this dispute, that it's real easy to, both sides to say what they're saying now and do what they're doing. But you would have to think leading up to the draft that the Browns have to decide ultimately, okay, are we going to trade him or not? Because it would be foolish to not get draft capital immediately and trade him after the draft so that your draft capital's in 26 and 27. I mean, that would seem foolish to me. Now, Garrett's got 2 years left on a contract. This is not Trey Hendrickson, who has a year left and he wants a new contract. This is Myles Garrett not saying anything about a new contract. He's just, I don't want to play here anymore. I'm done. I mean, he's doing what Joe Thomas never did. All right. Joe Thomas just took his lumps, never played in a playoff game, Hall of Fame career, never played a meaningful game in it. All right. Myles Garrett, who's gone to the playoffs twice with Cleveland, but he has said, hey, I've given you 7 years. You guys are a train wreck. I've lost faith in you. Get what you can for me. And, I wish you all the best.
And David, that's where maybe I'm towing the line here and being a little political with my response. But the Browns have all the right in the world to get as much as they possibly can for him. I'm not arguing that. I mean, he should be worth 2 firsts at least, maybe even 3, and a good player, right? And you're right that they should, if they're going to do this, do it before the draft. That way your capital is, you're able to use that sooner than later. However, honor the request, work with them a little bit. He'll give you probably a list of 5 or 6 teams he'd love to go to. Do that. I'm not saying you have to trade him wherever he wants and get pennies on the dollar, but my God, he's one of the best players in your franchise's history.
Well, but aren't they entitled to say, no, we have no intention of trading you. We gave you the contract for a reason.
If they had a decent couple years in a row here or something like that, they actually felt like they were
2023, they won 11 games and made the playoffs. I mean, they have not sucked. This is not the Giants. Okay, honestly. I mean, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Baker, double-digit wins, won a playoff game on the road. I mean, 2 years ago, they won 11 games, went to the playoffs. They have not sucked every year. Okay, they just made one of the worst transactions in the history of the league, and it has definitely grounded this franchise in Deshaun Watson.
No, and that's true, and that's fair. And that's why I guess different strokes for different folks here. That's where I'm like, okay, he should have the right to want to get the hell up out of there, because look at how this franchise is run. Look at this move for Deshaun Watson and how it strapped them. He sees that. He knows he's 29. He's not getting any younger, and he knows he's got some probably 2 or 3 really solid years in his prime left, right? And he wants to spend those on a contender.
He turns 30 around Christmas, Myles Garrett. He's got 2 years left on his deal. Myles Garrett signed a 5-year, $125 million contract. He's scheduled to make $20 million this year. He's already earned $125 million in the league. So he can afford to miss games. Here's the magic number, by the way. It's 11. All right. Dwayne Brown did this a handful of years ago. I think it was with Houston, and forced a deal to Seattle. Okay. You can sit out 11 games. Then you got to show up. Otherwise, you don't get credit for a year of service time. So in theory, Myles Garrett can sit out to about Thanksgiving or thereabouts. If we're going to go the distance on this, and then you figure out of $20 million how much that's going to cost them, it's probably going to cost them about $13, $14 million.
But you bring up a great point, David, that if anyone could afford to miss games or miss out on some money, it's Myles Garrett. He's gonna put his money where his mouth is, no pun intended, and we're gonna find out how important it actually is for him to leave if he wants to leave, because you're right.
So you think Myles Garrett is either going to get traded, okay, or play for the Browns? You don't think it's going to be a holdout?
Oh, I think it's going to be a holdout, and it's going to be ugly. I just think that's ridiculous that the Browns aren't working with him, giving him an inch, if you know what I mean. Help him out. Poor guy. I think David might be frozen. Miller and Moulton, we're having a blast here on a Friday.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700, or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net. For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or NolanAgency.com. Sleep problem but don't want to wear a CPAP mask? This is Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. The mask wasn't working for me, and I didn't think I had an alternative. I do. We all do. They have such simple alternatives with greater success than the mask. Visit SleepTreatmentDirect.com. That's SleepTreatmentDirect.com. And if you are like me and your CPAP machine isn't working for you, it's time for a change. Call 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Back. Well, Trent took us out to break nicely, so
I figured he would.
Yeah, he's a pro.
I just hate my life.
No, you don't.
It's not that bad, David.
It's a lot you guys don't know. Actually, I'm actually not a big fan of it right now. You've been there, Rick.
Been there and around the block a few more times.
Yes, you have. In fact, you've done a marathon.
Yes, sir. So I understand.
I just need effing internet to work. That's all I ask for when I leave the house.
What are you doing this weekend, David?
I think I'm going to Tallahassee tomorrow for Leonard Hamilton's last game because he's playing Andy Enfield in SMU. So I think I'm going to go see Andy and be there for Coach Ham. Going to go with a buddy of mine.
Nice.
Who's Michael Fly, who used to be FGC's head coach. He's actually worked for both. He worked for both guys. So I think Fly and I are going to go to Tallahassee tomorrow for that. I may see Jeff Cameron when I'm there. So
we had Shelby Mast on the show this morning. He was terrific.
Now, I don't know if you know the full story with Shelby.
I don't.
Shelby had a stroke like 5 years ago. Really struggled for a year to get his speech back. It's part of the reason why he's so,
yeah.
He answers your question, doesn't do it in great substance, but terrific dude and very thorough.
Yeah, he was great. Our listeners loved him. So did I, because nothing gets me going like the madness, as you know.
Oh, we know.
David, I don't know if you'd be proud of me for this or if you'd want to kill me, but I have my color-coded sheets. I have started the process here. My cheat sheet.
Is this for the madness?
Yeah. Here's my little roadmap right here.
Oh my God.
I've got Joe Lenardi, Jerry Palm, and Shelby Mast. All their seating written down.
Okay. Hold on to this. Save this for a couple of minutes.
Okay. Of course, it did me so well last year because I picked Auburn to win it all, and they lost in the first round to Yale. But
yes, they did. And that's why do you have the guts to double down? Remember, the year after Virginia got beat in the first round, they won the Natty.
Kyle Guy. Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett pulled off like the biggest escape heist I have ever seen in college hoops.
You mean 3 weeks before the season?
Yeah.
Okay. Him or Larinaga a month into the season. Wow, we suck. I'm old. I'm out of here.
Did Mo Ryan do that too? At Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, they at least had a succession plan in place as to who was going to replace them and all that. Come on, Internet. Give me 18 minutes, will you? Golly.
$18 more minutes, and then you're literally home free. You're on your way home.
Oh, yeah, it's no problem. I mean, it's 600 miles.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
Well, if the Internet is going to cooperate for the next 16 minutes, if not, Trent Bally and Rick Church will take you home on Miller and Moulton. Mark will be back on Monday, and I'm not doing another show on the road for God knows when. Okay, maybe when I visit my mom in the spring, but anyway. So you were, Trent, showing something during the break, which is either awesome or alarming, and I'll let the audience decide. Obviously, Selection Sunday is a week from Sunday. You're preparing for it?
Is that
Oh,
fair to
yeah.
say?
Selection Sunday, David, this shouldn't shock you, and I know it doesn't. Selection Sunday's a holiday for me. It's a national holiday. I mean, I'll head to the bar. I'll start drinking at 10:30. I'll watch the Big Ten tournament championship game, right? Then right into the selection show. And this year, God rest his soul, Greg Gumbel won't be hosting and revealing the bracket, but it is one of my favorite days of the entire year. Just seeing the bracket and getting everyone's initial reactions is almost more enjoyable to me than the actual games. I love it that much.
Okay, well, I'm going to put in an early vote for alarming, but we'll see where we go from here. So what is it that you do to get ready for your drunken bracket reveal fest that is apparently 9 days away?
I will go. So here's the thing. I pretty much look at every national bracketologist known to man. The Joe Lenardis, the Jerry Palms, the DeCourcys, your own Shelby Mass does a terrific job, right? I look at all that. I'll make a spreadsheet or a grid. I handwrite all this stuff so I remember it. And then as soon as the bracket's revealed, we start looking at matchups. And when we look at matchups, we go to the net. We go to KenPom. We go to just simple offense and defensive rankings. What is this team's biggest strength? How often does this team turn the ball over? Simple stuff that you probably prep for a broadcast with. It's just I have a bunch of useless knowledge by the time these games come around, and I don't care. No shame.
But Trent, a broadcast involves two teams. This is 68. Okay. Now I'm assuming that will you do the work on the 16s? I mean, we've had 15s go to the Elite Eight recently. We've had a 15 seemingly every year this decade go to the Sweet 16. We've had 2 16s win in the last 8 or so years. I'm just curious, how deep are you going to go? How many, what seed line do you stop this absurd amount of prep for?
Well, you bring up a great point. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, once you get to 8, 9, 10, excuse me, every year there's a 12-5 upset. So I kind of get there. And then once we get to 13, 14, 15, it's 1 bullet point, 2 max per team.
Okay.
But the top seeded teams, it's pages worth.
Okay. Well, what do you do with this information? Like, is there a stat? And I'm being serious here. Like, for the longest time, it was an experienced backcourt. If you could find a team, whether they were a power program or a little engine that could program, if you could find a team that had 2 seniors in the backcourt, like, I have a theory. The small conference school that's either going back, I'd love when they're going back for the 3rd time, that they went as sophomores, they got drilled. As juniors, they gave somebody a game. As seniors, they're going to win.
Yeah.
The problem now is you can't keep teams together, the same group of guys together that long. It's tough to do that. Like, that was Vermont back in the day. When they beat Syracuse, which is almost 20 years ago now, that's exactly what they did. They got drilled. They gave somebody a game. And as seniors, they won. All right. And I forget the former Blazers guard, McCallum. Okay. His Lehigh team also had gone a couple times. And when they were upperclassmen, they beat Duke in a 215. So that was a thing that we looked at for the longest time. Experienced backcourts. What's your stat?
I don't know if there's even one specific. I'll tell you what, I probably sound old school. Rebounding. I love looking at rebounding. If a team is a great offensive rebounding team, David, you know this as well as I do. There's nothing quite like the kick out after a missed 3 to hit a 3 on the offensive board, just tip it out and put another shot up. That's what I think a team like Michigan State would need, because they're so bad shooting the 3 that if they're a great offensive rebounding team, they're going to win in March. That's my logic.
Boy, you sound like a Miami Heat fan talking about Chris Bosh kicking it out to Ray Allen there. My goodness. Which, oh, by the way, is coming up on 12 years now. That's how long ago that was.
That also, quick little shout out, that is my brother's ringtone. My brother Miles, that's his ringtone. Mike Breen's call, Ray Allen hitting the 3 to quote unquote save LeBron's legacy, as Skip Bayless loves to call it. It's a great ringtone. Anyways.
Wow, you mentioned Skip Bayless. I did. Skip Bayless. Who's he? Very quickly, your thoughts on Stephen A. Smith getting $100 million over 5 years?
I mean, I think it's ridiculous. I'd rather listen to you. I'd rather listen to Mark Miller. I'd rather listen to 5,000 sports talking heads before Stephen A. Smith. And I'll leave it at that.
I will say you're going to get less of him. This is a hell of a deal he pulled off. He's getting a huge raise, and he gets to do less work. Like, he won't be on as many games as he used to be on. He won't be on all the sports centers before and after games. They view his greatest asset as his daytime 2-hour show, which I find hysterical because I have 1 million people watch it. And I'm not kidding. That's how many people watch that show. And yet they view that as, I mean, Cowherd's the same way. Cowherd's gets like 200,000 people to watch his midday show on FS1. And he's making serious coin.
You know, Cowherd's moving to Chicago.
Yes, he announced that. Yes, his wife was tired of being out west.
Which for him, that's a great move because the Central Time Zone, I don't know how you feel about this. I think it's the best time zone for sports. You know,
well,
you get Monday Night Football at 7 instead of 8. That 1 hour makes a huge difference.
Mark and I have argued that the Mountain Time Zone's the place to be, that Denver, you know, might be the best place to watch sports in. The whole 2-hour difference might be the best, but, you know, we can argue it. I will say I felt fortunate when I lived in Fargo because it's one of the most Western places you could be and still be in the Central Time Zone. All right. So in terms of how much sun was out at certain times of the day, certain times of the year, okay, as opposed to Nashville, which is about as far east as you can get to be in a major city and be in the Central Time Zone, and it's difficult. Anyway, I'll just say that. Miller and Moulton, MillerandMoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. It's Trent Bally live from Grand Rapids. Rick Church wrapping up his prison sentence of 2 days of community service, 4 hours a day, producing and engineering Miller and Moulton, especially when the equipment doesn't always work. Okay, so, you know, Rick, when you go and face the judge later today or on Monday, you make sure that you let him know, hey, you don't owe the city or the state any more time.
But David, I got to talk about the Minnesota Vikings for like 3 minutes. So, you know, I hope
Rick, can I ask you a question on that front quickly?
Yes,
because
sure.
you know, I mean, this could be our quasi NFC North roundtable here, real quick. What are they going to do at quarterback? I'm sure you've already answered this and talked about it, but I'm curious. What are they going to do?
I don't understand why they didn't tag, you know, Sam Darnold. I know it's a lot of money for 1 year, but you know, what are you going to, I mean, Sam Darnold's going to want at least 2 or 3 years. Are the Vikings going to give him that? And then what do you do with JJ McCarthy? I really have no idea. So I don't know. What are they going to do? I'll bet you JJ McCarthy's their starting quarterback on opening day. That's my guess.
That's probably my guess as well, but I'm curious because you're right. I mean, David, you've championed this for a while. The Baker Mayfield deal, 3 years, 100 mil, 30 a year.
But at
Can
first,
he get that?
Well, he wants more. The word is he's going to get more. Okay. The talk around the combine was that the Titans are all in on Darnold, that he's going to get his 3 for, you know, 125, 3 for 130 or whatever it's, or 4 for $160 or whatever, that he's going to get that from the Titans. So that's why I don't think he's interested in the Baker Mayfield contract with Minnesota. And even that's 3 for 100.
Right.
You know, I mean, think about it. Every quarterback drafted before and after McCarthy in the first round is playing, right? Williams.
Yep.
All right. Daniels, May, Penix finished the year, and Bo Nix was taken one spot after McCarthy. So the
and 4 of those guys played well, too. Not only are they playing, they're playing well. So, I mean, it kind of puts the pressure on.
Well, but I think the Vikings are like, well, listen, if you remember, in August of last year, the Vikings were not saying that Sam Darnold was going to start opening day, that McCarthy was having such a good camp and such a good preseason. They were holding out the possibility that JJ McCarthy was going to be the opening day starter. So to me, the Vikings just have to answer the question, is McCarthy healthy?
If he's not, they should have tagged Darnold and gotten one more year out of him. All right. But if he's healthy, you save $36 million moving on from Darnold at $41 million a year tagged to McCarthy making $5 million.
That's a great point because people get so wrapped up in the whole, well, who's the better quarterback right now? They forget there's a monetary aspect to this. And if you do want to start the clock on JJ, that is a hell of a bonus reason to do so, right? You're not going to have to empty the checkbook.
Now, Rick and I, though, then have problems with some of the other moves the Vikings are not making. They've got a really good young corner that apparently they're going to lose to free agency. Well, if you're saving $36 million by not tagging Darnold, why are you losing this corner? I mean, they don't have anybody better right now, potentially, than Cam Robinson. Okay. So, and I know Cam's only average to above, but if you don't have anything else, why aren't you keeping Cam Robinson in the fold? I mean, there are a couple decisions the Vikings are making with their money here that we're pretty curious about. Okay. I support them letting Darnold go for what it's worth.
I do too. I absolutely do, because
Rick wished they tagged him and they kept him in the fold for at least one more year till they knew about JJ McCarthy.
That would have seemed like the logical move all along, right? I say they're pretty comfortable under the salary cap. So what's $41 million for a quarterback for 1 year while you develop your top 10 draft pick?
Well,
I don't get it.
And their quarterback room would have been 41 for the starter, 5 for the backup. So if you're spending around $50 million in your quarterback room, a lot of teams are spending 50 or more on their quarterback room. Rick, I wonder if when they were 14-2 getting ready for Detroit, that the organization was going to tag him. And I wonder if after the Detroit game and the Rams game, if they said, I don't know, this seems like a lot of money.
That would be unfortunate. It really would. 2 games. I mean, I know they were horrible, but still.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the age-old debate. It was the 2 games, not just any 2 games.
I understand that.
He was terrible.
The team as a whole was pretty terrible. The protection was terrible. The defense was terrible. So
Justin Jefferson even didn't do much against Detroit. I mean, that was crazy. Amik Robertson, he locked him up. That was insane.
Because Darnold didn't have time to throw.
It was insane, especially 2 weeks later when you saw the Commanders go up and down the field with less weaponry than what the Vikings had. And you wondered, well, how the hell was the Detroit defense able to do this against Minnesota? And they couldn't stop Washington with a court order if they had it. So that's why we love sports and some of the great mysteries.
You got to play the games.
About it. Quickly, 30 seconds. Do anything this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going up to a casino that sponsors our show in the morning, so I'll be spending my weekend there. And then Sunday, I'm going to East Lansing for Michigan State. So I'm fired up for that.
Nice. Do you have the money to go to a casino? I mean, A, you work in radio, and B, you work at a liquor store as your second job. I mean, I know you have about $37 in your checking account. Can you really afford a casino?
No, especially not with gas prices. But that's another. It's 2 hours away, so all the money's going to the gas tank.
Boy, those first few hands better be winners, because otherwise that's going to be a very short trip to the casino. Trent, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it. You look good. Everybody a part of the show wishes you the best, and we'll talk down the road.
Thank you, David. Sad it was only for an hour, but it flies right by. Always a blast talking with you.
Trent Bally joining us from Grand Rapids. Rick, I was joking before, but seriously, couldn't have done the show without you.
Very my pleasure. Even the early morning hours, I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you.
Well, I do feel as if we made a contribution to your life. You found out the value of the power nap. I mean, it is one of the 10 greatest things in Western civilization.
And I understand that better now than ever. In fact, I'm on my way now. Thank you.
I'll give you some advice. Set an alarm in all seriousness, because it's so good that you wake up and you go, oh my goodness, the day's gone. All right. I took a 2.5 hour one yesterday. Thank goodness I set the alarm. I would have missed the game. Everyone, thanks so much for listening. Have a great weekend. Mark will be back on Monday here on Miller and Moulton. Miller and Moulton are very grateful to you, the listeners, for making us one of the highest rated shows for men, because the working man is one of the toughest demos to reach, and we do. Great sponsors like Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Sleep Treatment Direct, Game Day Men's Health, and Molly Maid recognize that, and we thank them. And if you own a business and working men are your clientele, the most cost-effective way to reach them is through us. Text Miller and Moulton at 21,000 or directly via X at that Mark Miller or the David Moulton.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh, no!
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks slide peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor, a neighborly company.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Is snoring bothering your spouse? Would you like to sleep in the same bed again? Do you know that snoring can affect your sleep cycle and cause lower testosterone levels? At Sleep Treatment Direct, we have easy solutions. We have a simple laser procedure that can improve snoring in 10 minutes. If you would like to get back in the same bed or are looking for a natural way to treat low testosterone, give us a call at 239-444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Or go to sleeptreatmentdirect.com. That's sleeptreatmentdirect.com. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound. Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.